Good evening. At this time, the chair will entertain a motion to end the executive session and resume the regular meeting.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. I do wish to point out I was not present for the executive session, and so at this time I will turn it over to Ventura Rodriguez, who chaired the executive session, for a quick report on the executive session.
Sure. So the executive session took up and unanimously approved a change, a non-salary change to the superintendent's current contract, and that, again, that motion passed unanimously.
Great, thank you. So at this time, we will resume the regular meeting and begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, we'll take public comment. I have one person signed up, Mr. Molly.
Good evening, honorable members. In this new year, we demand of you support our teachers and their union. We are proud of our public school with the impeccable leadership of Honorable Superintendent moving forward. Now we have more level 1 school, more high school graduate. Because of her leadership, parental involvement improved. Because of the superintendent's attendance policy has been improved. In my children's school, Robert Frost Elementary School, we witnessed many new teachers and staff who are not familiar with the leadership and the policies of the central office and what is happening in public school because of the lack of attendance at the meeting like that. In this new year, teachers and staff must be involved. They cannot be hiding behind the slogan of school autonomy. We demand the school staffs across the city, especially many new Robert Frost Elementary teachers, school and teachers and staff, to come to central office meeting, and we cannot ask the parent to participate and do not get involved. The objective and goals for the parent and citizen in this new year: we must support honorable superintendent leadership and policies. We must support our teachers and their union in the year of 2020 contract. We must improve parental and community involvement and contribute in progress of Lawrence Public School. We must encourage teachers and staff at the school such as Robert Frost School attend leadership meetings such as that. God bless the United States of America. We pray for peace. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I'll turn it over to the superintendent for the superintendent's report.
Great. Welcome back, everyone. We've had a strong start after a 2-week break. I've had the opportunity to visit schools, and kids were happily engaged in learning, and teachers were also engaged in teaching practices. I want to get started with the rest of our agenda this evening, and I want to direct your attention to the materials in your packet this evening, which are the goals. I drafted these goals in our last meeting, and I requested feedback from you all. I appreciate the feedback that you all have given me. I've done my best to incorporate most of the feedback. I also wanted to make the distinction between superintendent goals and turnaround plan goals. So as we have been discussing, there's going to be a robust process for a turnaround plan. And so a lot of your questions and some of your feedback will get incorporated into the turnaround goals, and those will have very specific initiatives and strategies that are related to the academics, that are related to parent engagement, and are related to some of your other questions. In front of you, you have 5 goals. The additional goals was added because of the feedback that you gave me. So I'll review these goals again. We'll entertain your feedback and hope to receive your approval. The first goal, again, is about revitalizing the open architecture vision, and this is specific to the renewal of the turnaround plan and the creation of the earned autonomy framework. The key actions follow. Some of them, of course, we've discussed, which is assembling committees to help with this process. We hope to have to you by the spring and early summer a draft of both of the frameworks. The second goal is to develop the process for the high school redesign. In our last meeting, I mentioned that we're the recipients of the Bar Foundation grant. That's going to also help us with achieving this goal. The third goal that I've proposed is specific to the social, emotional, mental health, and particularly for at-risk students. This has been highlighted last year in my entry. We have revised and restructured our student support services, and those actions include thinking about staffing. They include a continuum of services, and again, details of what that will look like will also be included in the turnaround plan. The fourth goal remains from last year. I think I had shared with you all that I have a strong commitment to ensuring strong relationships with this governance board, and hope to maintain better communication with you all, both individually and collectively. And lastly, this goal was also part of the feedback that I received, which is around teaching and learning. And so it also correlates really nicely with some of the initiatives that we have in the district, which you'll see outlined more clearly in the turnaround goal. But in summary, we're going to be creating a clear vision for strong instruction, and then we're going to support that with training and resources for teachers and students. Again, this is a highlight, big summary. I appreciate the feedback that you've given me. I'll entertain any questions.
So at this time, what I'd like to do is take a motion to approve the superintendent's goals and then have discussion before a vote. So at this time, the chair would entertain a motion to approve the superintendent's goals.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
So the motion now is on the floor, and would open this up for comments, discussion, questions to the superintendent. I will just open by saying that I really appreciate the work that you've done and the depth that you've put in the detail. And just thinking about the progression from last year's goals to this year's goals, I think reflects the great progress you've made in the job, and the fact that you've had this year to really learn the district and are now like very clearly moving in a definitive direction with like really clear ideas about where you want the district to go. And I know you had those all along, but you were wise to take that time in the first year to really make sure you understood the lay of the land. And I think it's reflected in these goals. So I really appreciate the work that you put in on crafting this vision. Others? Pat?
Yes, Superintendent, I want to thank you for including the curriculum and instruction piece. I think that was very, very important, and I appreciate the fact that this has become one of the goals, and it will be reflected in the turnaround plan as well. Again, I echo what John says. I think it's a good roadmap to continue from where you were last year to the future, this year coming. So thank you.
Julia?
Yes, I agree. I think the superintendent's goals have been well thought out. I do have a couple of questions, though, pertaining to the restoration or the bringing back of local community educators. I understand, and I think that would probably fall under goal number 2. where with the receivership, I understand that we've lost quite a few local educators. And I don't see in any of these outlines that there is a plan to kind of encourage and bring back some of those positions that were lost. Also you have the grouping of the stakeholders in terms of bringing the parents, and we all understand that it's usually a challenge to be able to gather the parents or to bring them in to the school system. If there is a plan in place where you could, and I know we've discussed this in the past, where we could engage some of the other organizations that have had somewhat of a good turnout in engaging parents, success in engaging parents whenever they have any types of meetings that has to deal with their children's education. And lastly is, while all these goals are in place, I would like to know what types of measurable means will be in place for us to be able to understand whether these goals have been reached and where we are, where we're going, and when they have been reached.
Yeah, I'll address that last question. I think it relates to my earlier comment about if you can think of these goals as highlights of what the turnaround plan will detail, then within that plan, you will see very specific measurable goals. And those will be multi-year goals, while these are yearly goals. And so those are sort of, if you can think of them as the pathway to the smaller, more detailed goals.
And I agree, but I'd like to see them consistently as part of these goals, because if even though they're long-term goals, they should be tried to be reached on an annual basis as well, on a short term.
Other comments or questions? Jess?
Are you going to answer the question about the local, the local educators?
Yeah, I think that that becomes a district priority that, of course, I will be spearheading along with the leadership team. And so it is under Standard 4, which is the bigger bucket with the evaluation tool. You know, so we can certainly incorporate it as a priority under the turnaround plan, and then it can be discussed in the Standard 4 under this evaluation. So I think one of the things for us to start thinking about is how do we marry both that plan and this evaluation, which should align, which is what I'm trying to get to here. And so under the turnaround plan, I think we will put that as one of the initiative strategies priorities with respect to how do we continue to have hiring practices that align with the demographics and the needs of our students and our families.
Mayor?
Can you just talk a little bit about how you envision the opportunities that we're going to have to engage with the high school redesign, but also engage with the vision of the new architecture, the old architecture vision? How do you see our role in that? And I know we'll probably have to take a vote, but is there something else that you see happening there? I know specifically, I'm more concerned about the high school redesign.
Sure. So my role in this process will be enlarged to ensure that the multiple stakeholder groups, including the subcommittees of this board, are coherent so that we're not reduplicating efforts. That's one. Second, that we are engaging all the right stakeholders. And thirdly, that when we summarize it, it's coherent across both efforts, both the earned autonomy and the turnaround plan, plus my goals, so that there's a through line by the time we're done, by the time the springtime comes around, and specifically by the summer. So your role is going to be checkpoints, because we're going to come back to you in the spring. I'm going to come back to you and say, here's where I am with my goals. Then the subcommittee is going to present to you and say, here's where we are with the draft of turnaround, draft of earned autonomy, and then late summer, perhaps early fall, it all comes together to then start implementing, which is your role to ensure that it gets implemented as we continue to feed you the data points and the goals.
So do you envision not only the stuff that we will do officially, but do you envision us being part of a workshop or a community charrette, or is it just going to be like once you have gone through that process, we'll get to vet it?
Both. I envision that you will have direct input with stakeholder groups, so there will be various stakeholder groups that you will be included in and invited to, and that you will be the first audience to sort of say, here's our initial thinking, are we on the right track? And that you then, of course, finalize, vote on, and then present to the commissioner.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Jess?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if Julia and I are the only ones that think this, then so be it. I guess I feel like the local hiring piece of it and the like sort of representation, and I'm not even sure which of these current goals it might fall under most appropriately as a bullet, but I would like to see it called out. Like, I feel like your goals are more process-oriented, where the turnaround plan goals are going to be more content-oriented, so I understand the argument. I mean, I know that we'll hear that in the community process around the turnaround plan, but I do feel that it should be called out here as a priority, because I feel like there are important process questions around that you kind of need to spearhead as the school leader. And I don't know if you want to weigh in on that, but.
So I would just like to mention a few pieces here. Number one is the turnaround plan will come before this board for its approval and cannot become the turnaround plan until this board has approved it and then sent it on to DESE for final approval. So the goals, the metrics, the measurements, all these pieces that we have as priorities come before this board. And this board will be, and already is in many ways, deeply involved in the process of renewing the turnaround plan. I just want to make sure that that is clear, that, you know, this board has say in all of these things being part of it. I also just want to say that at the very last meeting we had, we distributed the superintendent's first draft goals, and I asked everyone to please review those and then give the superintendent feedback on the goals and the revisions you want to see. And I think that if we wanted to see Indigenous teaching program, and locally based teaching program in these goals, it would be most fair to have mentioned that to the superintendent prior to this meeting. Because I know she supports it, and I know that we can also build it into the turnaround plan. And I'm sure she'd be supportive of amending it or putting it in this, but I think it is somewhat disturbing to me that we laid out really clearly at the last meeting to please convey your priorities to the superintendent that you wanted to see in the final draft of this plan, and to hear it for the first time right now. Mayor.
I did respond to that. I did.
So, just so we have a long agenda, given the issue on the table, is there a motion to add something somewhere or subtract something somewhere? I'm trying to see where that something might fit. Listen, the motion may pass or fail, but, you know, I just want to get the goals done so she can start working. So
I think she already is working. I guess I leave that
Yeah,
up to
I hope you didn't
Jess,
take that the way.
who was asking her directly where it is and if she wanted to respond to it. I think the whole thing is about a motion of approving the goals, and if we feel that it's a big issue that it's not present here, then let's just get to whether we want to see these amended or not.
I think it is on the table that they want to amend it, and I just want to know where. And if they want to amend it, I want to support that, so we can keep moving.
May I?
Julia?
I don't particularly know where we would add it to, maybe goal number 2. Well, even though this is the redesign plan for the high school, but this is where it encompasses all the engagement pieces of the community. However, with all due respect, John, even though we were asked to give our feedback to the superintendent. Remember, we were in the middle of holidays. She was going on vacation. Her and I touched bases on that time. And we all have things on our plate that we do. And this isn't the first time that we get information from the superintendent or the school at the last minute, and then we're supposed to deal with that at that time. So I will please ask you to refrain from saying or putting blame on people at this time. If you're asking for I think the issue of community educator has been on the table even before the superintendent was hired. And so that should be a very strong piece that should be reflected in anything that is presented to us or to the community. So that is my response to you. And whether we choose to put it on goal number 1, goal number 2, I don't know where it would fit, but I think it's really significant that we have that piece in there because it is important to the community.
I just want to add that I did provide both written feedback and verbal feedback to the superintendent, and I know my verbal feedback included that, and I don't remember if the written feedback did, but I can go back and check. But I'm actually, as I'm rereading these, I'm seeing that under goal number 3, the last bullet is a place that if we added 2 words to that, that I think could at least cover it or be the placeholder that we need. So the last bullet is look for continued opportunities to recruit and expand bilingual staff for all roles across the district. And I would just add to bilingual and bicultural staff for all roles across the district. And if people are okay with that amendment, then I'm happy to vote in favor of the goals as they otherwise stand.
I second that motion.
Julia, would you be in favor of the goals if we amend that there, or would you like to?
Sure, I'll be in favor.
All right, so
Who made the initial motion on the matter, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
No, I didn't make the initial motion about the goal.
So
about
I think at this
approving.
time we can accept an amendment.
Just the
Well,
way.
that's just wondering if we
Okay.
can know who was that made the motion, they could accept it as a friendly amendment, and we don't have to vote.
Chair, I believe I made the initial
Yep.
motion
Would you
to,
accept that as a friendly amendment?
I do, can I discuss? Are we still in
Yeah,
discussion?
Sure.
Yeah, I'm totally in favor of adding bicultural. I think, one thing that, when I think about the district and I think about the last few years, and I don't have the data in front of me, but, my understanding, having reviewed the data, is that the district has been committed to really expanding the number of educators that live in the community, and then also, my understanding is that during the course of the receivership, the number of Latino teachers have been tripled, which, again, I don't have the data in front of me, that's my understanding. I want to continue to do that. So I think, I just want to say to the public record, and part of my day job across the state is helping to diversify the educator workforce, so I'm completely in agreement with an amendment of that's being proposed. So, but I just wanted to say that for the record, that I think there, again, my understanding is that the district's actually has been committed to this path, and so if we can reflect it in here, that's fine, but just want to note that I think the district's already been doing this, so I just want them to continue, and, I think the research benefits of having educators that reflect the students are very, very strong, so I'm completely in favor of continuing to go in that direction.
And you would accept it as a friendly amendment?
I do.
Great. Yeah, I would point out that in board orientation and in our briefing from the former superintendent, we were given numbers that showed that the number of Latino teachers in the district had tripled under his tenure, but I would note that, having spoken with Jess about this issue many times, we are talking specifically about Lawrence residents within this program
Well, that too, and
as a priority.
I actually, and I'm not saying either way, but I think the data might say that the number of Latino staff in the district had tripled, but that doesn't mean teachers. And we might have added more paras, which is also super important, but, and it may be that the number of Latino teachers has increased. That I don't remember, but I don't think it's the number.
Just to be clear, I don't think anybody's saying we're there.
Okay.
I don't think anybody's saying that. But it's not numbers that have gone backwards.
And just to go back on that, John, I think during that discussion, we had asked for further information regarding those numbers, which was never provided. So this is what had brought on my question about what kinds of tools do we have in place so to measure whatever type of success we have, or from what point do we start doing that?
Great.
Can we move the question?
Yeah, at this time, we have a motion before us to approve the superintendent's goals as amended. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? The motion carries. Superintendent, next on your report.
Great, thank you. So next, we're going to have Marisol Sheets, Assistant Superintendent, giving us an update on the high school. I think last we met, we had shared with you also a brief update, in particular about a safety concern that occurred earlier in the fall. And so we're pleased to give you an update on what's happened since.
Good evening, buenas noches.
Buenas.
So my name is Marisol Sheets, Assistant Superintendent here at Lawrence Public Schools, and I'm happy to provide the Lawrence High School updates. My updates would focus on the NEASC accreditation, school culture and climate, and the headmaster search. The Committee of Public Secondary Schools, as of October 21st, 22nd, 2019 meeting, reviewed the accreditation report from the recent visit to Lawrence High School and voted to award the school continued accreditation in the New England Association for Schools and Colleges.
Congratulations.
They provided several commendations, and these are just a few, 4 out of, I believe, 20. The report is on our website. Feel free to peruse it. Some of the commendations were specifically around the presence of challenging and observable 21st century learning expectations, sense of belonging from the students, commitment to dual enrollment and post-secondary access through impressive variety of college-level courses and electives, and highly effective use of summative and standardized assessments in tracking academic progress and translating the data into adjustment for instructional design. We received several recommendations, many of which we are working on at the moment for this school year. Many of them are tied to our goals for the year, our instructional goals, as well as our social and cultural goals. Some of the recommendations that were offered were to provide professional development for teachers to optimize extended periods of instruction with specific reference to increasing the level of student engagement in their learning for all students in all academies. Develop a plan to unify faculty across academies and to support curriculum alignment. Create continuity in advisory seminar classes from 9 through 12, And lastly, develop specific criteria for measurement for monitoring students' academic and civic participation.
I'm sorry, Marisol, can you clarify what you mean by create continuity in advisory and seminar classes? I don't
Yeah.
know what that refers to.
Yeah. So advisory is offered in grades 9 through 12, and they would like to see kind of a sequencing from the 9th to 12th so that advisory builds off of each other. So what we're trying to do is actually use the social emotional learning competencies to be part of the advisory curriculum and the college and career readiness as well. So making sure that students have that from 9th through 12th grade at their developmental stages.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Sorry, some technical difficulties. We will be having an accreditation celebration at Lawrence High School at the PAC on Thursday, January 30th from 3 to 4, and all LAE board members are invited to attend. We will be celebrating and honoring accreditation heroes among the staff and faculty that worked tirelessly to demonstrate the greatness of Lawrence High. For our updates for school culture and climate, campus leadership has worked collaboratively to directly support the school culture and climate at Lawrence High School this fall. All administrator, deans, safety officers, school culture specialists, and crisis paraprofessionals completed crisis prevention training in November to de-escalate and prevent student crisis. We partnered with DESE to support students with disability and English learners to ensure if appropriate, that their needs be met in alternative education schools, such as RISE, Phoenix, and HLC. This has resulted in 60 transfers to date this school year with support and direction. And it has resulted in the 60 transfers to date to the school year, and that's actually our highest transfer rate and maximized all of our alternative education options. With support and direction of the manager of safety, our campus safety officer team is fully staffed and have reinforced protocols to be a one-entry campus. As a result of all these efforts, we've seen a significant decrease in physical altercations between students and enjoyed a successful student-run pep rally before Thanksgiving. In order to support the social emotional needs of students on campus, we reallocated funds for a long-term substitute guidance counselor position for this year and are looking to increase positions in safety officers, BCBAs, and counselors/social workers for next school year. Keeping our focus on social emotional learning and restorative practice, the Center for Restorative Justice will be conducting circle trainings this winter and spring for all teachers and interested staff to attend. Many have already taken the training, but with new staff in the building, we want to make sure that all are trained in restorative practices. Lastly, the campus has been functioning more positively with the help and presence in the hallway of our teachers and staff during transition as they continue to build stronger relationships with students and encourage a sense of urgency for students to enter class ready to learn. Through our lockdown safety learnings and recommendations from LHS staff, we are digging in our collaborative work around campus safety since our return to break. Each program and academy will review the updated campus crisis plan and safety protocols during staff meeting, and this is turnkey information provided to students. We'll hold at least one safety drill, either evacuation, lockdown, or shelter in place every month through the end of the school year. To monitor our progress towards improving safety practices, we've created a brief anonymous safety pre, mid, and post-assessment. The updated plans, timelines, and anonymous pre-assessments are in teachers' mailbox this week, and we're hoping that this month we'll begin our first safety drills for 2020.
Do you want us, if we had a question on one of those slides, do you want us to take it now, Mr. Chair, or do you want to wait till the end?
Go ahead and ask questions as we go, that's fine.
This is such an important thing. that I would like to have, if you could produce, or if we could get to everyone, a one sheet on this type of stuff, the stuff that we've done since, kind of an ABCs of what we are doing. I'm not saying we should tell all the bad guys how we're being safe,
Yeah.
but at the very least, I think it's important to know who's been trained, how they've been trained, that there are we've had these drills, and, you know, that on top of the good work we were already doing, that we did this. So if I can get a one sheet, it could be this if you want, but this seems like there's some things might be on this that you don't want folks to know about, but
Right.
this is really important.
So this could actually be used, I think it's safe enough. What I'm a little concerned about sharing is what is our actual campus safety protocols.
I wouldn't
Because
want that.
Yeah. So all teachers are having staff meetings this week in each of their academies, so that we can begin our safety drills beginning this month. So in the coming week, we should start our first safety drill. But before they participate in those staff meetings, we're doing a pre-assessment, which is 10 questions to assess how knowledgeable they are in the safety protocols of Lawrence High School. And then after us having a few drills, by the time March comes along, we should have had 3 drills, and want to then assess how confident are they with their knowledge of the safety protocols and procedures. And then finally, at the end of the year, we should have 6 safety drills conducted. And so we should have a final assessment, and we can gauge our progress, or lack thereof, if there is any, for us to make any changes in reiterating what our procedures are.
All right, but you'll get this one around?
Mm-hmm.
If you can get that sent out to us. And also the invitation to the celebration of the accreditation. I'm not sure I have that on my calendar.
I put it on your calendar.
John, may I ask a question?
Yeah.
Without compromising the safety plan of the school, would it be appropriate for you to share with us after each drill? I'm assuming you're going to debrief how the drill went.
Mm-hmm.
Would it be appropriate to share how it went, what you found needed to be improved? You know, what were the pluses and the minuses?
Yes. I could do that.
Okay.
So after the drill, the safety team for the building assesses, you know, how fast folks evacuated the building, or how fast we went in shelter in place, so the time that it took us, and if there were any delays or issues or altercations between students or staff, and if the medical needs of our students were met. So those are kind of our 3 criteria for measuring the success of our evacuations or shelter in place.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
John, may I?
Will you?
Going back, Maricel, to recommendations, there was, one of the recommendations was to unify faculty across academies.
Yes.
And I understand that the academies, each of the academies holds a single grade, unless I'm
give or take.
mistaken. Is there any way that at a future meeting, you could share with us if there has been any measure of how this has helped the students just by being in a single academy by single grades, whether prior to and after, I guess, or was there any recommendations made regarding that as well, unifying the students?
The recommendation was more about unifying the staff around curriculum alignment. So what happened previously is that each academy, because of the autonomies, created their own curriculum. And so when the academies don't talk to each other, staff don't talk to each other, then students may get a repetition of something that they learned in the previous academy once they move to a different academy or grade level. So they recommended that we have a real consistent alignment and sequencing of our courses across the campus. So we've been doing a lot of that work this year.
Wouldn't that affect the students as well, in terms of communication between the lower grade and the higher grades, or having a model to know that next year I'm going to be in this grade, this is the way I should be studying to act, or this is what I should be doing to prepare myself to be at the 10th grade or the 11th grade.
Yeah.
With them being separated is, I guess, my point, the question I'm bringing up.
I can't speak to prior my arrival in July, but since I've been on campus and working with the campus leadership team, our whole emphasis was shared leadership. That's one of our major goals. So in sharing the leadership, it's really working across and collaborating with each other, and for making our decisions to be student-centered, to ensure that our students are not experiencing a break in their education or having to kind of relearn structures, procedures, and behavioral expectations. So our operations meeting, our instructional meeting, and our leadership meeting are all tied to how do we unify across the campus, even though we may have different outcomes that we're looking for by academy and or by pathway and or by program, but that we have the same things in mind for all of our students.
But you just said that since you didn't know what happened prior to this happening, to the academy being one grade academy, is there any way, and maybe the superintendent can answer this, that we can get some type of a report or something that can tell us, well, this is what was happening prior to this, and once we changed it to this, these are the improvements, this is what we've noticed that has happened, that has been successful or not?
Yeah, I think that's right. We can come back to you later in the spring to sort of share, here's what we've noticed, because we'll have different benchmarks then. In addition, I want to, remind us that we have the BAR Foundation, and so we're going to be developing the portrait of a graduate, and that's going to help us with this question that you have, because we're going to specifically be asking students, right? Like, what's that experience like? And then we can also add that as a benchmark. But before that, we'll have a benchmark to come back to you with.
Thank you.
I will add that we do have our internal benchmarks. Based on the school redesign grant, there were specific questions that were asked through the Insight survey in the spring, and we also delivered that survey in the fall, in November, of students and staff, and we've seen significant growth in those categories of leadership, student support, student engagement, and teacher professional development. So we're delivering that survey again in the spring, and so we'll be able to give you kind of a tabular from school year 18-19 through school year 19-20, what the trajectory has been for each of those goals that we set for this year. Okay. Where was I? Okay. Headmaster search. Excited to announce that our position was posted December 2019. Sorry. And for this process, we want it to be an inclusive process, and we have a selection advisory committee of which members have been identified that belong to the groups that are listed there: principals, teachers, community partner, clerk, assistant headmaster, assistant superintendent, and parent. Those members will meet together on January 14th to review confidential candidate resumes, identify interview questions, and receive procedural guidelines on the process.
Mr. Chair?
Yep, Mr. Mayor.
Is it too late to add somebody to this? Because, with knowing the type of schedule I have, I'd like to volunteer as a member of the LAE board to be part of this process.
So,
If that's possible.
So in the final round, I think if Marisol goes to the next slide, there is going to be 3 rounds, and so you're certainly welcome to join us in the final round of finalists, where finalists are going to be asked to join us at the PAC. They're going to have opening remarks for staff and then Q&A from everyone, so you're absolutely welcome to join us then.
I'd like to make a motion that a member of the LAE board be assigned to the SAC member in search of a headmaster.
Second.
So we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? I'm going to roll call the vote. Joan, if you could call out each members by name, and you say yes or no, that'd be great.
Yes.
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 I'm going to say no.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. All right, the vote carries 6-1.
I'd like to nominate Jess Andrews. That's a joke. It was a joke. It was a joke. I'm not. I won't take it. Somebody should
Possible.
probably
I
nominate
know
me.
we already voted.
I'd like to nominate
I know we didn't have a
Mayor Rivera.
discussion portion of that, but I know we didn't have a discussion portion before the vote, but I just wanted to clarify, like, for me, it just feels like we hire the superintendent to run day-to-day decisions, including the hiring of school-based staff. So that's the only reason I voted no. So
So you gonna nominate me?
Yes. I'd like to nominate Mayor Rivera to serve on the, representing the LAE board.
I second that.
Yeah, at this time, actually, I would just say that I think we need to go get clarification on how we appoint someone to this committee that's been designated by the superintendent. I think we're clear that we want an LAE member on it. And I think that it's clear that we want it to be Mayor Rivera. I'm not sure that we need to vote on that. I don't know what.
I just want
we're
clarity.
going
I mean,
down.
it's, when you vote on something, it's clear, and if it's not, then
I
it's
think
not.
we're clear that the LAEs voted in favor of having somebody on this committee and that the designee should be you, Mayor Rivera. I don't know that we need to have a vote.
It doesn't
on it right
have to
now.
be me. I oftentimes, when I find a problem,
I think
I
you
find a
just
solution.
volunteered yourself.
But I'm
for-
volunteering myself for that, because
Okay. I think that's all
part of it is
understood.
that this is, this is not just, we're not just hiring, anyone, we're hiring the headmaster, and I have an affinity as an alumni.
I think we've got it. I think we all understand.
Okay.
Marisol, you want to continue?
Love to. So there's a couple more steps in the headmaster search process. Again, bearing in mind that we wanted to make sure that this process is inclusive and that whoever is coming in as a headmaster has interface with the individuals that they will be working closely with, and we want to see them in action. So on January 27th and 28th, the SAC interviews the candidates and recommends semifinalists. The week of February 10th, it's the semifinalist round with focus groups. So there will be a focus group for students, teachers, central office, campus administration, and parents. The week of March 2nd, superintendent interviews finalists with central office and conducts reference checks. And we hope to have a decision by the superintendent the week of March 9th.
Questions, comments, anything?
Yeah, I have a question. Is this the normal period? Like, I know that when we were looking for a superintendent, we wanted to make sure we're doing it in a certain time period.
Yes,
This
this
is
is
the time period
this
that
is
we're
the time.
Okay.
This is the time.
Great.
And that concludes my presentation for the high school update.
Can you do one favor for me, Marisol?
Sure.
Can you go back to the commendation slide?
Correct. There you go.
So I'll just say, from my own personal standpoint, accreditation is sort of an assessment that says you're up to standard. So I don't get all into clapping that we have accreditation. That's something that just should be. And I know it isn't always, and I know it's not an easy process, but it's a sign of failures in our society that we can't have all of our high schools accredited. It means that they're up to snuff, they're meeting basic standards. It's the commendations that mean the most to me. And one thing I would note is that Lawrence made a decision to adopt the Mass Core standards for sort of the baseline of classroom quality and what our students were going to have to study and what it would mean. And it's adopted across the board, because it's not all at Lawrence High School, it's also here at High School Learning Center, and where all of the high school students are in Lawrence, that they are taking classes that meet Mass Core standards. And what we know about that is that when students, and in particular students of color, are taking classes that meet Mass Core standards, they are far more likely to complete college. And they are far less likely to end up at college paying tuition to take remedial classes. And Lawrence has made a real commitment to making sure that a diploma at every Lawrence program in high school means something, and that the classes have real standards in them. And that is reflected in those commendations right there, and it's something that we should note, because while there are a lot of struggles at the high school right now, there are good things happening as well. And I just wanted to note that because I'm proud of what Lawrence has done on that. And I drive 90 minutes tonight from a city where we don't have uniform standards, so it means that you can get a diploma at one Boston high school, and it means nothing as compared to another Boston high school. And we don't have Mass Core standards, so one chemistry class can have rigorous content and prepare a kid for college, and another one can be entirely different and leave a kid ending up paying for remedial work when he goes to college, paying for what he should have got in high school. And so that's why I note the commendations in this. But it goes beyond just Lawrence High School. It's all of the high schools and programs in Lawrence that serve high school kids. So thank you, Marisol, for your good work, and we know you got a lot going on and a lot of good stuff to come. So thanks.
Well, I want to say thank you to the Lawrence High School accreditation team. They're the ones who really worked tirelessly to put together the evidence of our high quality and instruction and our delivery of 21st century learning expectations.
Thanks.
I just wanted to say that that we were able to finish across the, I guess, thanks and much love and support for the work that you guys did, the staff at Lawrence High School, that during a transition we were able to put a period at the end of the sentence, so that is accreditation, given that things were kind of up in the air and there was all this transition going on, especially your leadership at the campus. And I just want to say that, you know, a lot of things changed in the middle of trying to finish this up, and the staff did it with much leadership, with much, you know, selflessness, and so make sure that we, you know, we're going to be there for the celebration, but I just want to make sure everybody knows this was not like at the very end there, it wasn't like it was something a slam dunk. There was a lot of balls in the air, and it did not go unnoticed.
Thank you. I think it's very clear that the staff at Lawrence High School is very much committed to the students, and you could tell that every time you walk into the classroom and you see the students engaged in respectful ways with the teacher and them having really caring relationships, and that care went a long way with demonstrating evidence of our instruction at Lawrence High School. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Marisol. So next, we're going to have an update on our initiative of restorative justice, and I'm going to ask our team to come up. So we have Mary Toomey, Shalimar Aquiles, Bob Kerr, Alison Balter. They're all school leaders, and they're going to share with us some of the promising practices, actually excellent practices, that they're all leading in their schools. And Mary will give us an overview of district-wide where we are with restorative justice.
Good evening, everyone. Happy New Year. We're really pleased to be here, and I will introduce my colleagues in just a few minutes. I know that you have probably heard about our initiative regarding restorative justice practice in Lawrence that we really scaled up this year, and I thought it might be a good idea to just give you a very brief overview of restorative justice practice, and then let my colleagues share with you some of the progress updates that they have seen as a result of being involved in this initiative. So just to begin, we have partnered with the Center for Restorative Justice at Suffolk University. It's a wonderful partnership that we have been able to sort of cultivate, and they're just wonderful people that have a great sense of this work and very committed to doing it. It's a very broad term and encompasses a lot of things. There's, sort of a new, lots of support around this. It's a sort of a buzzword, but the real commitment around this is building communities in which all participants feel safe and feel valued. In addition, when and if harm is caused to the community, restorative practice embeds very productive approaches. So not always punitive, but very productive. And they focus on problem solving and repair, restitution to the relationship, to the community. It is really about the relationship that, we feel from watching this has been most influential in the work that we're doing so far. Restorative approaches seek to balance the needs of a victim, of a wrongdoer, and the community through a process that preserves the safety and dignity of everyone that's involved. Restorative justice at its core is a very flexible set of practices that are adaptable to many purposes, and they enable all of the participants, students, and teachers, educators to bring forward their best self. So it's optimal to really start with restorative approaches in daily practices of schools so that we can establish a positive climate and build the social and emotional skills first through community circles. And that's really the tier 1 level of restorative practice, and that's the work that we have primarily been engaged in this year. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that. But before we go to the next levels of introducing restorative justice into situations that maybe where conflict or disagreement exists. So how are restorative practices helpful in schools in general? They really help with building classroom climate and the relationship. As I said earlier, that's a big piece of what we're noticing. It does include a curriculum that our educators are using to help with the problem solving. In the primary grades, we talk a lot about the importance of feelings, taking turns, being a good friend. So all of that curriculum is available in the high school level. Marisol talked about advisories and the curriculum that's used there. So kids have an opportunity in a small group to use that kind of curriculum to start practicing those things daily as they're going through. IEP meetings is something that is, we do a lot of those, right, for students with identified disabilities, and we do annual reviews, and it can be an intimidating place for families and parents to come into, but by using a circle structure so that everyone is heard and valued, it's really helpful. So all of the adults in our community, in our school system, are being, we're sharing the exemplars and the approaches of restorative practice with them. Classroom problem solving is another place. Sometimes there's a disagreement among, students, and there's a problem in the class, and we can solve that in a very collaborative way. Student advisory, as I mentioned already, with the goal of increasing social emotional learning and awareness so everybody is aware of all of that. Also, restorative discipline in the upper levels, in Tier 2 and Tier 3. It can be very, very helpful to have restitution or repair done within the community, and that's another important piece of this. Teacher-student dialogue is a place that we have seen, and I hope that you hear from my colleagues tonight about things that they've seen improve as a result of that communication, because once the relationship and the trust is built, then that dialogue becomes very proactive and productive, and lots of problems are solved as a result. It's been very helpful with bullying interventions so that, again, a student can share their feelings about why they feel badly about something, and the student who, may have said something inappropriate understands why and how that could be hurtful. So it's not just about imposing a consequence, it's about helping children understand the results of their actions and helping them sort of internalize that so that it changes their behavior moving forward. And it's really important. We also have employed this at community meetings. You'll hear from some of the principals about how they're using it with family meetings. Our own Two Rose Council, which is the new name of our President's Council, has had training on this already, and so we're very proud of that. And then also staff and team meetings has been another place where we've used this. So what about restorative justice practice for Lawrence Public Schools specifically? What has that looked like? So going back to 2 years ago in 1718, in LaSalle and RISE piloted the initial partnership with the Center for Restorative Justice, and they developed models of excellence as a result of having done it for the past 2 years and now engaged in their third year. They were very instrumental, both, Allison and Dan, the two leaders from those schools, were very instrumental in helping the rest of the leaders in Lawrence see the benefit and help them engage in moving this work forward. And then last year, Lawrence High School expanded their partnership with Suffolk, and many more educators were trained and received the level 1 PD with the center. Also, the AFT, which is the national branch of our Lawrence Teachers Union, along with the district partnership, launched a school climate and culture steering committee with the superintendent following attendance at a Center for School Improvement Institute in New York City. So that was very impactful when a team of administrators and teachers from Lawrence went to this AFT-sponsored event in New York and really started to launch this, what can we do about improving school climate and culture? What is that going to look like? And that sort of laid the foundation for taking a revamped look at our discipline code and thinking about a more proactive approach and how the restorative justice practice that had been piloted at LaSalle and at RISE was really making an impact. And so that's where we started. So in June, we held a leadership institute for all principals, a day and a half, and it was led by the Center for Restorative Justice and Great Schools Partnership. And together, those experts came in and they coached all of our school leaders around this work, and we all participated. The superintendent, myself, all of us participated in community circles and in getting in touch with not only our feelings, but the feelings of the other participants. And we really engaged and got to know each other on a level that, maybe we have not before. It was extremely impactful, and I think it made an impression on every leader who participated in that day and a half. It was great. And at that time, the leaders began creating an action plan and to consider readiness with their school community, to go back and discuss with their school community if they felt that they were ready and, how they wanted to roll this out in their schools and what the supports would be that would be needed for each of the schools and what that would look like. And then we move into this year, started in August. Following that June Institute, we invited school leader teams who felt that they were ready to get together and complete their level 1 training as a group. So the small group from each school that involved the principal and a few other leaders came together, and they really started developing their plans for how they would engage their educators. And that led to the fall where we provided full faculty level 1 training at those ready schools. It was 2 full days, and you can see the schools that we started with there if you can see the print. And it was really well received in terms of those schools and what's happening. And then we moved to while we couldn't train every educator in the district all at once, we decided that we did want to train all of our counselors in the district. So all the counselors in every school received the 2 full days of PD regarding level 1, as well as the materials, the Circle Forward book. All of the educators who completed the training in the fall received that as well. At the same time that was happening, we asked some schools who felt that they needed more work on mindset first to really think about where they were in this process of change. And so we brought in Great Schools Partnership, and those schools participated in PD with Great Schools Partnership, just sort of increase their readiness and to help them really prepare for what this move to restorative practice might look like moving forward. So right now, we're preparing for level 1 training at the next group of ready schools. It includes 4 more schools, and most of these trainings have occurred on Saturdays, where educators are coming in on 2 Saturdays, and we like to do it on 2 consecutive Saturdays because it is a part 1 and a part 2 to the level 1 training, 6 hours each Saturday. And it's been very, very well received, and we're looking to do, more of that in the summer coming up, and then again next fall. It's sort of at least a 3-year implementation plan that we have going, and that's our plan, is to expand the training next year. So what I want to do now is really turn it over to the school principals that are here so that they can share with you examples of excellence. We're going to start with Bob Kayer, who's the principal of the High School Learning Center. He's going to introduce a little bit about that Tier 1, where we're really building and strengthening relationships and building community. Then we're going to go to Shalimar Quiles, who's the principal of the Hennessy School. Hennessy is a grade pre-K to 2nd grade school. And Shalimar has just been doing a fantastic job, and she's going to tell you about how Tier 2 is working, growing responsibility and responding to conflict when that happens with little ones. And then finally, Allison, who's been at this work a long time, Allison Balter, who's principal of Enlace at the high school, is going to talk about restitution to the school community and supporting reentry to the community, to the classroom, and how that's working on a Tier 3 level. So all of this work is going on, and I want to just kind of introduce that to them. So we're going to start with Bob, and he'll give you a little introduction.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you, Mary. That was a very thorough.
You can use this one. I think this one's definitely.
That was a very thorough overview, and it's always hard to kind of follow you, so I'm going to do my best here. At the High School Learning Center, we are in our 2nd year of doing circle practices, and one of the things that Mary did mention, that really the key foundation is establishing relationships with students and making sure that students feel really comfortable having a space to kind of convey some of the social emotional things that they may be dealing with. At the High School Learning Center, we have an advisory program where students participate twice a week in circles, and those circles a lot of times are based on some of the things that they're working on in advisory. And so I do have the privilege tonight of introducing a video that was taken with one of our educators, Jay Oza. He will talk about his experiences with circles over the past 2 years. You'll have a real quick clip, I believe, of seeing a circle in progress, and you will hear from some students at the High School Learning Center as well as Lawrence High School about their experiences with circles. And then if you have any questions at the end, I will gladly answer those.
Using the Restorative Justice Circle really brings staff members and students closer together. So often teachers are busy and have big classes, and you don't want to think of students as just a name on the top of a paper, and you don't want to just think of students as this is a B student or this is a C student, or I need to get on the student's case about improving their grammar and punctuation, but really learning about a student's life as a human being and not just a student.
To be honest, I'd say my mom inspired me too. I know, I was slacking hard last year, and me slacking, that was upsetting her. So, me doing good and having good grades and hopefully graduating this year, that's gonna make her proud.
My favorite part about senior year, I transferred out of the LHS campus over here, so it was kind of rough at first, but then getting to know the school and the people and all the help that I'm getting, I got honor roll my first term, and I'm trying to keep it up throughout the whole school year.
It's nice. It's just nice for them to express themselves when they feel like they're not being disciplined for anything and they're actually being listened to. And it can also then help the administration and help the teachers understand their students, where their students are coming from, and try to create a better situation moving forward.
It's a good way for you to connect with the people in your classroom, to start understanding what their thoughts are.
What I like mostly of the circles is it shows us how everybody feels. Everybody feels differently. So it tells me how about he's angry. I'm not gonna be like so fun with him.
When you make those connections, I think the most important thing about this circle practice is that we're trying to kind of bridge this whole faculty and student relationship and create more of a community and a human environment where we all see each other as people and not necessarily like stuck in these roles of like a superior or inferior or pupil and faculty type role. So it's been really exciting this year to be a part of that, and last year as well. It's been really exciting to be a part of that, and I think our school community has improved a lot since we started.
I think, again, for us at HLC, the skills that our students are learning while they're participating in these circles, we found that our goal always, if a student is having difficulty, to not turn it into a discipline problem if we have to, but how do we sit down and use the skills that they've developed to kind of problem solve, talk through, restore maybe whatever wrong may have been done within the classroom or with another student. And so we are looking forward to moving to our next step in training and going kind of to the level 2 or 3 and doing much more of the restorative work when a major harm has been done within the community.
Thank you. Shalimar is going to talk to you about her experience with the younger students and Tier 2 practices.
Thank you for having me. Of course, very similar to HLC, you'll find Tier 1 practices happening in every single classroom in our school, including in our preschool classrooms. It just looks a little bit differently than what you just saw. You'll also see those during our PTO meetings, you'll see them during our all-staff meetings, and you will also see them during just regular parent meetings that we might have, whether it might be focused on an IEP or attendance or whatever it might be. In addition to Tier 1, the school counselor and I are also modeling Tier 2 practices for our staff. The Tier 2 practices that we're modeling are really focused on growing responsibility and deepening relationships with students, but we do that through addressing a conflict. So just like Bob Kerr mentioned, instead of going straight to a consequence, which we don't actually believe in at the younger grades anyway, those are skills that we're trying to build in our students naturally, but we try to really focus on the response to our conflict and focus on building relationships between students and building relationships between the adults and the students as well. Like I said, of course, innately we believe in this, but I think using the restorative justice frame for us this school year has really helped us build consistency around the student experience. Every student in our school, I can say confidently, is getting a reaction to a situation that's very consistent across the space, whether you're in preschool or you're in second grade. It's also helping us continue to develop our shared vision about what we want for our school, what we want our school to feel like, what we want our school to sound like, and what are the conversations that we want to hear between staff and also between students and staff, and again, those parents as well. And lastly, to build more balance and opportunities for the students that I think wrestle the most with conflicts. Those are the students that you might find most in a conflict, and now when I think about success stories, those are our students that are facilitating these conversations and have the opportunity now to be vulnerable and say, hey, I experienced that as well. Here are strategies that I use that you can use as well. I can sit here and rattle off a million different stories that are profoundly and deeply impactful to everyone. But I would say the biggest takeaway is that students are again given that opportunity to stand up, to share what's working for them, to build connections with each other about experiences that they've had, and take on that leadership role to help other students as well.
And Allison Balter, principal of Enlace, will share a little bit about Tier 3 intervention and what that looks like.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be able to share with you where we're at in our practice. And as Mary mentioned, we're in our 3rd year of practice with restorative justice. We began training with Suffolk and the Center for Restorative Justice in those Tier 1 practices first. And just as Shalimar and Bob had said, we believe it's really important to build that strong foundation of Tier 1 relationships through circles, through getting to know each other, through building a strong community. And from there, we've been able to layer on helping kids navigate challenges, learning language that they can use to deal with problems, those Tier 2 practices. So all of that has been a crucial foundation that we've spent a good amount of time building as a school community. And it's really challenged us to grow as educators, but most importantly, I think it's made us a more culturally responsive community, as well as inclusive of student and family voice in the process. As Shalimar said, we also have used circles and these types of practices with our family meetings and with our staff meetings as well, and so it is a true, deep component of our school environment. So having that strong foundation allowed us to then say, okay, we're ready for that Tier 3, that next step when a true harm has happened in the community, a real breach of this community. And so myself, our Director of Student Supports, and a teacher leader were trained in Tier 3 conferencing, or harm circles is another phrase they use for it. And so the goal of restorative conferencing of Tier 3 is once a harm has been done, something that is significant in our discipline code, it might be something that would typically result in a suspension out of school, that we have an opportunity to bring the folks who caused the harm, who were received the harm, as well as supporters of all of those people involved, to the table and learn how to mediate that conflict and see if we can arrive at a solution that will eventually avoid a punitive consequence such as a suspension. So we have run a series of these now. Last year we ran several of them. One really powerful example that stands out in my mind, we had a group of 3 students who were involved in an altercation, a fight, and instead of, in the past, where we would have said, okay, that's a long-term suspension, they would be out for quite a while, they were out for a day while we worked closely preparing those individual students, connecting with their families, and connecting with school staff who were their supporters or who were involved in the conflict, and preparing them to come together the next day and have a circle together where every party was able to share what happened, what their perspective was, and what they needed to feel restored. And it was incredibly powerful to be a part of that. Tears were shed in the process, and one of my favorite moments was at the end when everybody got to sort of come together. One of the mothers of a student who had been harmed in the process actually went up to the mother and the student who had caused the harm and gave them a big hug and patted them on the back and said, we're in this together now. So it was just an incredibly powerful evidence of how this can really work to restore a community. And ultimately, as a result of these conferences, we've really avoided suspensions and punitive consequences. In our first year doing them, which was last year, we reduced our out-of-school suspension numbers in half. And this year we've had only 1 out-of-school suspension for the entire year. So it's been an incredibly powerful experience.
Questions or comments?
I want to comment.
Amy?
I'm very excited. I'm very excited about hearing the restorative justice. One of the things that I have commented before in different settings is that a lot of the conflicts that many students have to do with the cultural differences, and the fact that you have this culturally responsiveness to reach out to mediate is something that I see that would be very advantageous for the students, because a lot of the time when kids have issues, the way that they express that might be, violence, might be in different ways, and by punishing them, it's just like spiral down, so it gets the kid even more removed from a way where they can actually reach their goals. So, congratulations on the work that you are doing, and it's really going to make an impact on all of our students, especially the immigrant students that just arrive, that are already stressed because of everything is so different. They don't have a way to express themselves, and usually those are the ones who a lot of the time end up having issues. So, congratulations.
Jess?
Yeah, I'm also super excited about this, and I want to thank you guys and also the superintendent for bringing this, because I also think that this is not an easy process to understand or to implement, and so I think it's really important that we keep having these updates and get the word out about what this is, what it really involves, what it means, and how it's working. Because I think otherwise the perception could be that, oh, there's no discipline anymore, right? And so one question that I had around this is, I mean, you guys mentioned that you're using this not just with students, but with families when there's an issue. But I'm wondering about what the broader communication is to parents, because maybe to riff a little on what Noemi was saying, like, I think that there are cultural differences across the spectrum, right? And some parents might have a more traditional or a more punitive idea about real discipline, right? And so what are our like sort of education and communication strategies so that parents can understand and buy into this process of community building?
So as schools are coming on board with this work, right, we're relying on them, and part of their action planning is around that very issue. What is going to be your plan for communicating with your families? So I don't know who wants to jump in and just share what you did. Yeah. That'd be helpful.
Yeah, I think that's been so important. And we at Enlace, we serve recent immigrant students and families who are coming in with new to the system and with different perspectives and understandings about what discipline might look like in a school, for example. So we've spent a lot of time, just like we did with our students, we started with introducing that tier 1 approach. Mm-hmm. And so what that looked like was instead of having a traditional PTO meeting where you're sitting there getting updates, that type of thing, we began structuring our family meetings in circles, and we call them Café con Enlace, and we say to family, we have students often who come and will facilitate and say, hey, in our class, in our advisory, we do this, we have these circles, and help their families see how that works, and so getting them exposed to that. And then, I think just ensuring that as we're addressing challenges and issues that arise or breaches in the community or disciplinary issues, that we're always in constant communication with families and bringing them to the table and engaging them in the process from point A to point Z, and just really partnering with them in that. So it's a learning process, but I think starts with, modeling for families the same way we've modeled for students.
Interesting.
I'll just add that at the Hennessy School, when we kicked off our school year and we sort of shared what our priorities were for this school year, this was in addition to, because it was a lot of work that we did over the summer, in addition to what our PTO drafted the year before. And we spent a lot of time talking about it in circle, and then teachers did parents did observation rounds in classrooms during circle time in the morning, and we came back to talk about what are the things that they liked about it, what are the things that they still had wonderings about, and we've already done that cycle 3 times. Now we've moved on to another content area, but because they've had that experience to see it in action as well, one of the comments from the parents was, can we get a check-in sort of at the end of the school year to see how it's progressed? How much deeper are we going in terms of conversations with students? So I think, to Allison's point, it's really been about modeling, front-loading that communication, and giving them an opportunity to see and engage in the process as well.
And then additionally, district-wide, we have had our larger, what we call PTO, but that includes students and community members, staff members, have training on restorative justice. So next Wednesday, they meet for their second training. So we have Mo Nunez come to us, and he provides the training. They also participate in what it feels like. He does an excellent job at, setting it up for families. And we'll have many opportunities like that. And then the other one is that we do have a district-wide school culture and climate group, and they're also going to be action planning on the different other stakeholder groups to also be introduced to these practices.
Great, thank you.
Mayor.
I'm not that smart of a guy, so this is a little bit over my head the way you guys are describing it. So but it's exciting because anything that keeps kids in the schools and not on suspension is great, and I think this goes to the concern people have, the school to prison pipeline thing, and the treatment of girls of color, all that stuff like this I am urging you to find better language to describe what you're doing, easier language for us to consume, because I have no idea. Like, I knew you were doing restorative justice and we're spending a good amount of time on it. It doesn't seem like the same thing that you're doing is what this is called, and the way, the tears and stuff, and
Yeah.
I don't care if you guys call it, you know, we hug a lot, or, you know, we come together, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's get a marketing team together.
Yeah.
And at no cost of the district, be clear, but.
I'm not sure that the little one, I mean, that's a great point.
Like, you're
and I'm
selling,
not sure that the little
it
ones-
seems like until you get to the part where you're talking about the kids coming together after the fight, you lost me. And then I was like, oh, I see now. I'm saying, so I'm urging you guys to figure out, and they may have the language, the people that we're hiring, they may have this language, but I'm not as smart as many people up here, so
Well, the experience is the most important part, right? And we call that circle. So when they sit in a circle, you saw in the video the talking piece.
Yeah,
that
I was trying to figure
passed
out the gold
around.
elephant thing. I
So
don't know.
everybody has a different talking piece. It might, you know, these folks can tell you what they use as a talking piece, and every teacher probably has his or her own, but it really sets you up for, if I have the talking piece, then it's my turn. You know, I hold the floor. And so they learn those things. And you're right, the other lingo is all, you know, based on all of the research and everything that's come out. But when we talk to children, we talk to students, you know, it is about relationships, it's about circle, it's about, you know, talking it out and using that kind of language that is very easily understood. We're also, I'll give you this tidbit just to follow up on the question about parents. We're piloting in 2 schools a piece of curriculum that is strongly related to the restorative work, that's more about working with kids from K to 5 on this very thing. How do we make it developmentally appropriate at the lower grades? And what I loved about that program and why we're piloting it is that it has a section where it's a rip-out sheet that goes home to the parents every week. And it's in English and Spanish, and they get to see what the theme is for the week. It might be, you know, not being a bully or trust or whatever it is, and they get to read about, this is what your child's working on in school during morning meeting or during circle time, and they get to know. So anything that has a parent component like that, it's wonderful that these folks are bringing everybody in and they get wonderful numbers, but we don't always see every parent at those meetings. So something that can go home to every parent is also important. So we're working with partners on those kind of resources too.
Julia?
Yeah, I just want to join the team in congratulating you on this work that you've done. It's not easy. I think, Mayor, I have a name for you, embracing our differences.
There you go. That's what I'm saying. Break it down for a brother.
No, but this is a good example as well of the things that can be accomplished when we work together as a team and engaging the parents in anything that has to do with the children. And it's also a good example of measurable results. You've already told us that we have only 1 suspension out of this because we're having these conversations, and I think this is what we would like to be able to say. When we put something in place, these are the results. This is what we get out of it. But congratulations on the work you've done.
Thank you.
Other comments, questions? Pat?
I just love the whole premise of the program as far as building relationships. And I think that's at the core of what we need to do every single day, and build those relationships with the kids as well as the families. So I'm thrilled that this is part of the district now, and I congratulate you and the superintendent for taking part in this.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
I'm going to change our order a bit, and I'm going to have the early college presentation come up now because we have families who are presenting. I don't want to make them wait any longer. I do appreciate the Oliver School Building team waiting. I appreciate your patience on that, and we'll take you right after this one.
As we're doing the transition, can just a quick shout out to Kim Barry, President of the Teachers Union, is with us this evening. Just thank her for being with us and the rest of the union leadership.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Also want to recognize Eric Blanchette, the AFT field rep who's here tonight, Trish Woolley from the Executive Committee, Jen Cahill from the Executive Committee, and Kathy Delaney, the Treasurer. Appreciate all our friends in the LTU being here tonight. So one thing I want to do between now and June, and we'll have 6 regular meetings, including tonight, leading up to June, when we would be voting, hopefully, on turnaround plan renewal and earned autonomy framework is I want to make sure that we're hearing from more families directly, and that we're hearing also from external partners to the district more directly. I always appreciate at every meeting we get presentations from the LPS team, and they're very informative, and we've seen 2 great ones tonight, which also included heads of school, which is great, and we always appreciate the great work of the superintendent's team, but I do think it's important as a board for us to do our job as best we can, that we also hear externally beyond just the LPS team and hear directly from families and partners to the district as well. So I invited the Smith Family Foundation, which helped along with our institutional partners like NECC to launch the Early College Initiative at the high school. I invited the Smith Family Foundation as an external partner to come talk tonight about early college, but also ask that we hear from families directly about early college. And I'm going to try to do this at each one of our meetings going forward. I would welcome your suggestions if there's certain external partners or students or families that you think we ought to hear from. I'll invite them to a meeting. And so you can just send me an email on that. But I'd like to make sure we do this at least once every meeting. I hope it can be informative relative to things as simple as the budget as we go into that process, but specifically as we head toward turnaround and earned autonomy framework. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Marjorie to start.
Thank you. Can you all hear me with this?
I think you gotta.
There we go. Thank you. So, Chair, thank you. I'm Marjorie Ringrose, and I lead the education work at the Smith Family Foundation. And we have been honored to provide part of the funding that your very talented and creative educators have used to build early college here in Lawrence. I've been asked to make a few remarks about early college generally, but my more important role is to introduce you to students and families who actually have been pioneering this work in your school and in your town. But first of all, what is early college? It is a program of study where high school students take a very carefully sequenced series of real college classes. Northern Essex College faculty on Northern Essex campus, Merrimack College faculty on the Merrimack College campus. And these students receive significant guidance and academic support to ensure that they thrive in these very challenging college-level classes and that they navigate a new environment of a college campus, which is very, very, very different than a high school environment. They leave high school with very meaningful college credits and the habits, the mindsets, the skills to be successful in post-secondary work. Early college is 3 years old in Massachusetts. It's 3 years old in Lawrence. It is 30 years old across the country. So nearly every state, east, west, north, and south, has early colleges, and these have been rigorously and repeatedly evaluated. And what has been shown is that early college is a twofer. It has gains on the secondary ed side, and it has gains on the post-secondary side. When we're talking about high school, we're talking about attendance, we're talking about discipline, on-time graduation, college readiness, the Mass Core, the chair mentioned. On the post-secondary side, we know that in states like Texas, North Carolina, Tennessee, many, many more, early college is doubling the rate at which students are receiving post-secondary credentials. Now, I'm a bit biased. I'm your #1 fan when it comes to early college, but it is fair to say that you have built one of the best in Massachusetts. It's also one of the largest, and it is very early days still. There's a lot of evaluative work that needs to be done, but we're seeing some very early indicators that this is working, right? It's working for your families and it's working for your students. I'm going to share a couple with you, and then you'll hear stories from people who are actually doing the work. Well, how do we know this is working? There is demand for this. All right, families and students are asking for this in your community. You started in 2017-18 with 130 students. Last year you had 233. This year you have 275. These students are earning real college credits, 2,300 of them last year alone. More this year, more the following year. Those college credits have a real value to them. $2 million this year alone to Lawrence families saved in college costs. That does not count the $3 million in scholarships to these students that have been extended by your Northern Essex and your Merrimack College peers. So real credits, real savings to your families. Many of these students will graduate high school with a full year of college credit under their belts. So if they're working toward an associate's degree, they've only got one more to go. And the students are succeeding, perhaps most importantly. All right, we know across a number of very, very important measures that we can begin to see now that students are thriving. They're getting the credits. Their grades are exceptional. Right? Some struggle, right? But when you look across the averages, these students' grades in college, when they are in high school, are higher than their freshman peers. Right? They are persisting in college at rates that are higher than their freshman matriculated peers. And they are enrolling in college in rates that are significantly higher than their non-early college peers. So these are all called momentum indicators in the post-secondary world, and they have been proven by the research to be highly, highly predictive of success in the future in college. So we at the Smith Family Foundation, we have had, again, the great honor of seed funding this program in Lawrence. And the question you may be asking, or perhaps you will be asking as you enter budgeting season, is what will it take to sustain this work going forward? Because that funding is rolling into an expiration. And I've done some numbers for you. These would clearly, probably need much more discussion. But if you stayed at your current size, which is about 275 students, half and half, juniors and seniors, you would need to contribute through the district about $375,000 to $525,000 a year. Right? Those are assuming steady state, and that is assuming your existing cost structure, right? The way you have been sharing your costs amongst your college partners for the last 3 years. The way you share your costs is negotiated with your post-secondary partners. There are many, many, many different models across the Commonwealth, but if you were to continue with that cost model and maintain the rigor and quality of your program at steady state, at 275 students, you'll spend about $375,000 to $525,000 annually. Can you grow the program? Again, I'm your #1 fan. I am not the one doing the hard work on the ground to make early college work, but I am very familiar with programs across the country and programs in the Commonwealth, and I think you could reasonably grow this program to 400 students. Why 400? All right, there's no magic to that number, but you have very deep relationships with your college peers, all right? And those are strong. You can leverage those for more students. You've done the heavy lifting of building the core infrastructure, right? Your educators have been working on this for 3 years, right? The infrastructure is there. Yes, modifications would be needed, more resources added, but the core infrastructure can support more students. Within the past several months, through the Student Opportunity Act, through some funding that is being discussed in the Department of Higher Ed, the public sources of funding or potential public sources of this funding are becoming clearer. And that adds a degree of predictability that it requires to commit to a program such as this. Early colleges across the country average about 400 students. All right, so if you got to that scale, you would look like many other early colleges across the country. And the state designates programs, a quality marker. They designate programs to be early college that entitles you to some public funding. That designation is favoring programs with scale. All right, so it is favoring programs that hit that 400 or so student number. And lastly, a little joke late in the evening, but a little healthy competition might not go astray. Yours is the largest program, right? Chelsea, Holyoke, Lowell, they're nipping at your heels, right? If you did want to kind of keep that bragging right, you need to grow to about 400 students. If you grew that program to 400 students, and you maintained your current cost structure, right, which again is a negotiation, there are many different models, but if you grew it and you maintain that cost structure, you'd be looking at about $550,000 to $775,000 annually. That spread is based on some very conservative assumptions I have made around what will be coming in on the higher ed side to fund this work. All right, so that gives you a sense of that spread. It's also based on some very conservative assumptions I've made about some economies of scale you could get in two major cost buckets, which are your buses and your books. All right, I just wanted to leave you with a sense for what you might be looking at if you were to continue the program or you were to grow it in the absence of the seed funding. You do not need new seed funding to grow the program. You do not have massive fixed costs to grow the program. These would be truly variable, and they would change over time with the number of students. Early college is powerful. Right? We know it works. Right? It works across the country. It works here. And these folks here are to tell you about it. They're the ones who have actually experienced this on the ground. So I'm honored to be here with 3 students and 2 parents who have students currently in early college. I told them I'll ask them one question. I know it's getting late for them, and they all either want to go home or go to the library or they're getting hungry. But if I could start with our students, and John, if I could ask you first. So John is currently a senior at Lawrence High, and he is enrolled in the Northern Essex early college program. And John, what classes are you taking? What'd you take last year? What'd you take this year? And why are you doing this? High school's hard, right? It's hard to navigate a high school, and then you're adding college on top of it. Why?
Yeah, so first of all, thanks for the opportunity. Last semester, I had the opportunity to take English Composition 101 and Human Biology at Northern Essex Community College. And next semester, I will be taking Chemistry and English Composition 102. And the whole reason of me getting into early college is because they give me the opportunity to expand my knowledge. Is like a new challenge, and also having that experience of going to college, having that college experience before actually going to college, it also saves money and it prepares us to that transition from high school to college, which can be sometimes very difficult and very hard for freshman students. So it's been amazing so far.
What's the thing that surprised you the most?
The structure is teachers. The professors at Northern Essex Community College are wonderful with us, the staff members, and the whole experience. I love it. I'm excited. I'm a senior, and I'm almost going to college too.
Thank you. Freddie, could I ask you a couple questions, please? So Freddie is enrolled now at Merrimack College. So he graduated from Lawrence High School, having done 2 years of the Merrimack program. Freddie is also a Pioneer Scholar at Merrimack College. And maybe, Freddie, if I could ask you, what does it mean to be a Pioneer Scholar?
So what it means to be a Pioneer Scholar is that you're going to be the first student to pave your way through college. So most of my peers who got this scholarship are the first people in their family that are going to college, and we're paving our way for our families. And what this scholarship really means to me personally is that my family is not really the richest, and we can't really afford a good college education. So when I was applying to colleges my senior year, I was always applying to community colleges and these public colleges and these state colleges. And then one day, this scholarship opportunity came knocking to our door at the high school, and I just had to take this opportunity because I never really wanted to go into private education for private schools because the cost is really expensive, and I didn't want to get my heart broken that if I got in, I couldn't go there because I couldn't afford it. And with this new scholarship opportunity, I took it and I went running with it, and I'm gonna do really well with it.
And that scholarship is valued. It's a 4-year full ride, room and board, at $60,000 a year. And Merrimack has promised 10 early scholarships to your students in your class, and they've committed to another 10 for this graduating class, and the hope and expectation is that it would go forward with that. So huge congrats to Freddie. Freddie, you're now in college. Right? What's the one thing you learned in your Lawrence High School experience with early college that set you up?
So with this early college program, I've learned a whole bunch of different things. But one thing that I will always remember is that instead of being in high school, you're going to a college and the professors aren't holding your hand. You have to do everything for yourself, and you learn everything that you're supposed to do academically with this early college program. So when you transition to go be your freshman at a college, you already have the academic side kind of handled, and you can start working on your social side. Because as we all know, if you're not going to be social in college, that's where people kind of drop out and they're like just alone. But with you already have your academic side, you can focus on your social side so that you can pass on and like kind of have fun for college, because college isn't just for an education, it's to have a life kind of and be great.
You can say have fun.
Yeah, I was like, have fun.
Yeah. Thank you, Freddie. And our last student here is Calvin. Calvin is enrolled at Northern Essex. He graduated Lawrence High School after doing 2 years in the Northern Essex program. So Calvin, think back to the students you know who are still maybe at Lawrence High School, some of your younger peers. Would you recommend early college to them, and what would you say?
So definitely 100%. I'd recommend this program. It's fully funded, so looking at it from a student's perspective, that's like a huge weight off of my own and my family's back. I found it as a huge opportunity, which not many of us get, especially like I didn't think I'd get this opportunity at all. I've had the comfort of still being home, which I know a lot of students struggle with, getting homesick, and I've found this program to be, in general, just super helpful for both me, my family. Yeah.
Thank you. So moving on to two parents who have students who are currently enrolled at Lawrence High School, and they are in the Northern Essex Community College program. We have Belkis and Julissa, and I'm going to ask you both the same two questions. First, when you heard about early college, were you a little scared for your children? They're going to college while in high school. Were you anxious or worried?
Well, for me, my oldest daughter, she already graduated from college, but when I hear from my son that he was going to go to college before I even finished high school, I say, what? I got so scared. I say, oh my God, you already grew up. I mean, I don't know. So he said, Mom, I'm very excited that I'm going to go to college, and I'm happy. And I say, well, I'm happy for you too, but I'm scared. So he goes, you don't have to. So now that he's been, this is his second year going to early college program, he's so excited. He said, "Mommy, I want to finish college. You know, it's a great experience. I'm so happy." And then my oldest daughter, when she hear about that he's going to college already, she goes, why didn't they have that program when I was in high school? I mean, I'm jealous. And I said, well, you know, me too. I wish they have this because it's very helpful for us, like as a parents, because you guys know you've been there and now you're parents and you know it's really hard for us when our children going to college. It's very, you know, stressful, expensive. And this program is helping our children and it's helping us a lot. So I would like you guys to support this program and make it expanded, like, you know, for the future children, you know, like, yeah.
Excuse me, I speak Spanish, boss. The new guy is Australis for me. Dale las gracias porque para mí fue sorpresa. Sorpresa porque mi hijo tuvo la iniciativa y fue él que fue por él mismo y fue al programa. La sorpresa fue cuando Niurka llegó a mi casa a decirme, tu hijo va a entrar al programa de la universidad.
Hi, Niurka Abar, Early College and Career Specialist at Lawrence High School. So she said that she was very surprised when her son came to her and said, okay, I want to go to this program and is starting college early. He didn't explain much. He just went on his own and showed up and sort of said, I want to participate in the program. That was a surprise for her because him taking the initiative to actually go and apply without even talking to her, for her, that was a surprise. Until I knocked at her door and I showed up and I said, okay, your son has been accepted into this program. This is what the program is all about. Do you even know anything about it? And to be honest, that day I showed up at her house, she's like, I had no idea. All he told me was that he was going to take a test and that he was going for some program, and I didn't understand or knew anything about it.
Aparte de eso, también quería hacer una iniciativa a la superintendente. Me estoy enterando ahora por vía de la señora aquí, que es una fundación que está dando soporte a este programa. A mi entender, era algo que salía directamente de la escuela, que ojalá pusiera en sus propósitos que puedan entrar más estudiantes. Mi hijo tuvo la osadía de entrar y tuvo la oportunidad de pasar ese examen y poder entrar y poder pensar que va a entrar a una universidad y tener la iniciativa y tener ese deseo de continuar estudiando, que se le dé más oportunidades, porque la fundación, todo lo que he oído ahora, no puede con tanto, sino un grupo pequeño.
Yeah, she's just saying that what Marjorie mentioned, that the Smith Foundation is funding this. She just want to urge the Lawrence Public Schools to continue supporting a program like this, that her son took the initiative to go and apply and participate, but she says that many other students can get the opportunity to participate in a program like this, and she wants to make sure that she urged the school committee and the Lawrence Public Schools to continue and support a program similar to that.
I myself highly recommend it to most of the parents to let their children get involved in this program. And for you, the mayor, because it's not only the superintendent, but the mayor, he have to do with this too. To, as a mayor of the city, I think you will look good if you help children to go to college and they pursue their dreams and graduate and achieve their goals, and it's going to be thanks to you too if you support them.
I don't already look good?
No, you don't, but you can look good. You can look better if you support our children to achieve their goal.
I like that. Understood.
Well,
I'd like to invite you to every meeting going
I-
forward. We appreciate it.
Me?
Yes.
Both of them.
Oh.
Both of them.
You can ask, I have
La
my
dos.
number. I will come to every meeting if you need to. For the children, for the future, because they are our future, you know. For them, I will come to every meeting.
Thank you. I wanted to ask a few questions. I'm sure some other board members do as well. John, I was just curious, if you go back to like your first day doing this, before you'd gone in the class at all, are you worried about whether you're going to be able to pass these courses or not?
I will be honest, I was scared. I was worried. I know it was a challenge, but I was scared because it might probably be too much for me. But I was able to handle it. And although it's kind of different, the first couple of classes, it took me kind of some time to get used to it. And that's the good part about it, because you do that before actually going to college, so you don't struggle in college, but you do it before you actually get out of high school. So that's the best part about the program.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Freddie, I'm just curious, what are you studying now?
Right now, I'm studying electrical engineering.
What kind of courses are involved? I would never set foot in an engineering class. What kind of classes are involved?
What kind of classes? Like,
Yeah, like what
which
are you
classes?
taking right now as part to get that electrical engineering? Like, is it just an electrical engineering class, or is it different science, math? What is it?
He's just
So-
partying, John.
Yeah, social.
So for this new semester that I'm gonna start next Thursday, I'm gonna be taking Calc 3 and Intro to Digital Technology class, and then I'm gonna do some prerequisites, which is Intro to College Writing and Intro to Psychology. So with the early college program, what classes kind of rolled over to my major was my Calc 1 class, my Intro to Engineering class, and my poli-sci class. Those goes for my general requirements. The only classes that
So
didn't
those
go
are credits
over,
you brought with you.
so I bring over like 3 classes worth, and then I also had 2 other classes that go towards my general credit because it doesn't go towards my major or my liberal arts requirement.
Gotcha. And Kelvin, how'd you find out about this program in the first place?
So my sophomore year of high school, they told us about the Accuplacer test, and we all took a test, and it then further placed us into these pathways, which were for me, they were mainly English-based classes through my junior and senior year.
Thanks. Other questions, comments, Mayor?
So I think I'm just trying to get my head around the math on the money.
I got him out.
Como me lo ponieron bien duro.
I got him
So you said you have how many students in the program right now?
You have 275 right now.
Why is there such a big difference between how much it would cost to keep it at that? 375 and 525, that's a big swing. Why isn't it one or the other? I'm trying to figure out how much it costs.
On the growth model or
On
the
the
swing
stable-
on the
on the
stable?
stability.
Right. The swing on the stable is based on assumptions about what will come in on the higher ed funding side. So there are 2 streams of funding, right, for this. It can come out of K-12, right, the district budget, or it can come out of higher ed, or a combination of both. And right now, this is a combination of both.
And what's that cost right now for 275? How many kids? 275?
We have 275 kids
How much right now with the model as is this today's, how much is it?
That is between $1,350 and $1,900 per student for a junior and senior year. And that swing is based on assumptions around what will come in on the higher ed side to offset costs.
Okay. I'm sorry, and I know people want to get along in the count. When we get the bill at the end of this year, how much is it going to have been? Do you know?
Well, it won't be anything this year because you're still on Smith funding.
So Smith's funded this
That's not the
whole
question
launch
I'm
of it.
asking. How much would the Smith Foundation have paid?
How much would we have paid that full amount? We would have paid that.
I don't know what that full amount is.
It's 500,000 was what we did a year.
So if we get 500,000, we could keep it as what it is right now.
Even less, because the Smith Family Foundation funding came in before other sources of private,
I want you to help me
public
figure out how
funding.
much it costs. And if you give me a swing number, that doesn't help me.
Well, I would be happy to sit and go through different cost models
I
and
want
different
that. I want you to give me a
scenarios.
price.
What's that?
Yeah, I
want
know.
that. I want you to give me a price.
But
Tell me 500.
It's right there.
Because then to double it,
Yeah.
when you told me that you were to double it, it was only going to be 575. That didn't make any sense to me because at 275, you were doing it at the high end 525. And you're saying for $50,000 more, I'm going to get twice the kids.
So let me give you the numbers again. So at your steady state today, if you kept this model at 275 students,
Yeah.
all right, the spread, you could expect Lawrence Public, if you're using your existing cost structure, you could expect 375 to 525. And that spread is based on some assumptions around higher ed funding, right? And we'll know more and more about that as every single day goes by. If you wanted to increase the number of students to the magic 400 number, that spread would be 550 to 775. And again, that swing is based on what might or might not be coming in on the higher ed funding side.
They could increase
Does
their
that make
price.
sense?
Maybe I'm missing a piece of
No,
it.
they're going to come in with money
More
that
money?
could lower it.
Higher ed is going to, through the DHE budget, through CDEP line items, will come in with funding that will offset some of those higher ed costs, which then makes its way into what the full cost of the program is.
So Governor, Secretary of Ed, and
Desi.
DESI Commissioner have signaled this as one of their priorities to come up with stream on the higher ed side and potentially another stream to make it more affordable on the district side.
All right.
There is also another variable, and that is that the students that are going to the early college at Northern Essex, the price is different from Merrimack College because of the number of credits.
That's what.
So
That's what I was going to say, and also.
Essex,
I'm sorry. And also, it's free to us. Like they provide everything, including the laptop that they need to use, everything, transportation, everything. So our children are getting a benefit that it will help them in the future, and it costs nothing to us. It's a very great opportunity for our children so they can continue going to school and be like before I had to push my son to get good grades. Now he's pushing himself because he wants to go to college. He wants to graduate from college.
Yeah, I think if we can be down on a total cost, then I think that could help with the
So
conversation.
it's something we can work through in the budget process too.
Yeah, and even on the city side, just so that we remember, all of us have taken votes here to do $200,000 to the Lawrence Promise initiative in Northern Essex, which gives 100 kids free college with laptops. So that's happening. We do that.
That is
to
happening
100
right
kids.
now.
It's not early college.
No.
But we are definitely doing some of that already with money from 100,000 from the city side and 100,000 from the school side.
we have 26 students, 26 Lawrence students, they're getting full scholarships right
26 is
now.
not 100? I thought it was 100.
Yep.
Well, is that the
Calvin?
funding
It's not
that
$1
is
million
available is
yet.
for up to 100 students, but
Okay.
last year was offered to all the students, and 100% of the students that apply, which was 26, were accepted into the program.
So I think that if we can be down on a good number, I think that's a better way to sell this thing on all sides. But congratulations, I think that's a great effort.
Other questions, comments? Julia?
Thank you. I just have a couple of questions. One of them, and I think somebody touched on it, is what are the requirements for students to participate in this program? And is it only students in grades 11 and 12 that are able to participate? And the only two colleges involved are Northern Essex and Merrimack College? And what happens if a student, how do they determine which college?
Right.
Julia, I'm going to try to remember all the different questions.
I can repeat it, but I
Okay.
figured I'd ask.
So in terms of requirements, we have sort of a tier of 3 things that are priority for students to participate. Attendance is the first one. They have to have 90% attendance in order to even be considered eligible to participate. The second one is that the students have to take an assessment. It's in English, depending on what track they're going for. If it's the, and by the way, this is the requirement for Northern Essex that I'm talking about. I should have clarified that first. They take an assessment. If it's the English portion or the English track that they're going for, they have to pass that assessment and get a grade of college ready in English, and they also need to be passing their English classes at the high school. And then the last step will be a recommendation sort of from a professor or administration. So once they do the first 3 steps, pretty much the student is eligible to participate in the program. For the Merrimack side, students that participate are mostly students that had already taken entrance exam to participate at the Abbott Academy. And students that are in the general Lawrence High School portion, then they have to take an exam called the AccuPlacer in order to be eligible, so they have to pass the AccuPlacer. The AccuPlacer is an exam, and Noemi can give more details, correct me if I'm wrong. It's an assessment that students take when they're going to attend college, especially community colleges. For this program in particular, we had a partnership with Northern Essex to create a specific alternative to the AccuPlacer. And now we're testing all sophomores at Lawrence High School with an alternative assessment to be able to have more equity and be able to have all sophomores participate. And during that partnership, we created rubrics, and both teachers from Northern Essex and teachers from the high school review the assessment exam and determine which students are eligible to even participate.
These have also allowed ESL students to enter the program,
Yes.
because the AccuPlacer is a little bit more rigid. So this new assessment, it was a collaboration between the professors at the college and the teachers at the high school. They worked for a whole year doing curriculum alignment and decide what would be the best tool for assessment, both in English and in math, recognizing that there's also a lot of students that are ESL students that have, some of the barriers, and figure out how those students can also participate. So the focus of the program is to look at the B and C students, the ones that sometimes they do not consider themselves as college students, and that's the reason why, to this partnership, we are assessing all of the students. So in some cases, and Nurka may speak to that, there are students that they never thought that they could be
correct.
a college student, and they get surprised that you pass. So that has been very rewarding.
Awesome. So we have different systems, so the Merrimack process is a little bit different. Also in terms of the courses that they take, the students in the Merrimack program, they take 1 class per semester. The students at the Northern Essex program, they get to take 2 classes per semester. And it all is determined also by the bell schedule at the high school. So we have the students in the Merrimack program going to classes at 8 a.m. in the morning, students at the Northern Essex program going to classes at 12 noon, so that way we're able to manage all groups. So I know you have more than just the requirements as a question, so go ahead.
No, I think you've answered all of my questions, but once a student is participating, let's say, with Northern Essex, can they later on decide whether some of those credits can be transferred over to Merrimack or vice versa?
In fact, we have had students participate in both programs at once. I think Joan is talking, one of the students, I think you're taking Calc 3? Oh, no, it's Joseph. We have students that actually get to take all the cohorted courses that we have at Northern Essex, and then they go next level to take courses at Merrimack College. We have had that. And then we have had also students that have started at the Merrimack College and have decided, okay, I'd rather take more classes, so can you move me to the Northern Essex program? So yeah, the partnership works that we are able to accommodate the students' needs.
That's excellent. Thank you. That's very
If I could just add one thing to that too, is these are all transferable credits, which means they could start at Northern Essex, stay at Northern Essex, start at Merrimack, stay at Merrimack, go between Northern Essex and Merrimack. They could go to UMass Lowell, right? They could go to any of the other state universities and publics in the Commonwealth. So these are kind of real value that goes with the students once they leave Lawrence High School.
And are you finding that there is more interest in the students that are not participating now that they know more about the programs?
We're getting a lot of students now knocking on our doors. Now we have to sort of take lists at the beginning, and you can attest to that. It was we knocking doors, please send those students. Now it's like we have to say, oh, we're going to have to wait until next semester. Yes.
Thank you. I'm glad that it's working out, and I'm happy to hear because I know how much of a savings that can be for families when the kids do end up going to college. So thank you.
Thank you.
Pat?
Yes, you've answered my questions. Thank you, Julia. But I'm the selection process, and you do have a waiting list, I'm assuming, what you said. John, I want to thank you for bringing the families here tonight. I think this is incredible information for us. It bothers me, though, that this information doesn't get out into the community. I mean, people need to know that this is what's happening at the high school. They need to know the relationship we have with Northern Essex and the relationship we have with Merrimack College. Too often we get such a bad rap, and there's such wonderful things going on right now. I think it's up to us to figure out a way of getting this good information out so that people can look at us and say, wow, look at what's happening at Lawrence High School, and look at how we're helping our students move on, and to guarantee that they have a college education. I think that's where we're missing the boat.
Thanks, Pat. Any final questions or comments?
I do want to make one comment, and this is about this is a side comment, about the early college students that go to NECC. So my office is right at the entrance of the building, so I see them when they come in. By the way, they're always hungry, and they know where to find food in my office. So at the beginning, like you can see at the beginning of the semester who is new, because they're like, almost like in hiding. By the time 4 weeks pass, they're almost like high-five me. I'm like, whoa, who are these people? Like they feel like I really like that social emotional development at the college, because they feel free to mingle with other students, to talk to even faculty that are not their teachers and the staff. So I'm very proud of how they develop themselves, even at that social aspect, and also how they learn how to advocate for them, because that's the biggest piece that they need when they go out and do bigger things in life. So congratulations.
And these are the things that we had to brag about it, like
That is true.
to let the community know that this program is in there, so they can reach out to that program.
Yes.
Well, I want to thank the Smith Family Foundation for the seed money over years to get this program launched. Thank you very much for your incredible generosity. I want to thank the students for coming to share your experiences with us. It's really important that we hear directly from you. And I want to thank the parents as well, to understand the impact on the families and the things that we can do to try to make sure as many families as possible benefit. So thank you so much for coming. And I also just want to quickly say, I was just going to mention the first time I ever sat with Noemi, right after the board had been formed, we sat down just to get to know each other a little bit, and this was what we talked about. And I didn't know anything about it at the time. But NECC is like the model for a partner with the district, with what they do and how they do it and the way it changes lives. And Noemi's been hugely involved in that. And thank Noemi and NECC for what they do. And I want to also recognize Odanis Hernandez, who has done all this work coordinating between high school, Central, Smith, and all of that, which is keeps it moving. And if you talk to Odanis, you also learn quickly, like, she knows all about the kids, and she loves the kids, and she thinks about it as, like, what are these young people getting as an experience? So appreciate the way everybody works together on it. So thank you very much. We appreciate that.
Thanks, Miyurka.
I was informed we have a child care deadline looming, so I'm going to just turn it over to Jess quickly for a student rep update and a turnaround plan update. Jess.
Okay, so real quick, I have to apologize on the student rep update, and I feel terrible, and I want the minutes to reflect how terrible and guilty I feel, because I have not provided my committee with the information we need to make a final decision about this, and I swear on my life that it will get done before the next meeting, because this is important to me, and it's just been a horrible, crazy fall, so I apologize.
And I think, honestly, if we can be in a position at the next meeting where the committee feels like they have a recommendation, we can probably seat the student at that meeting.
That would be, we can,
Okay.
we will meet and communicate it to you well in advance so that you can do that.
Great.
Okay, awesome. And then on the turnaround plan update, I don't know that I have much to add to what I did last time. Our committee met. We had a lot of consensus around how we want the process to unfold. We've since learned that the Great Schools Partnership has been retained as the consultant for the turnaround process, which we're very happy about because they have a very strong history of working with the district around family engagement issues and bicultural and bilingual capacity. So that's good. We are waiting for, I think, that contract to get fully finalized so that we can meet with the consultant and get the process kicked off.
Great.
And that's where we are.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Jess. Any questions or comments on that? You can bring them up when I do earned autonomy update. At this time, I want to bring up the team for an update on Oliver School.
Yeah, so I'll invite the design team, OPM, and Anne-Marie for an update since we last met. Thank you, Anne-Marie.
Great.
Thank you. Click it on, Anne-Marie.
Oh, it looked green to me. Now it looks really green. Thank you all for being so attentive and engaged tonight. It's been a great meeting, and we are going to try to be brief, knowing that the night has been long. And basically, we are here tonight with the design team and the project manager, which you met at our last meeting, just to follow up on some of your questions. And I'm going to turn it back over to Alex. We have given you a lot of information, and similar to last time, this information is for your consumption because some of the information in terms of traffic studies and things like that, we don't want to put out publicly because we're still in that research phase. So I just want to note that, and we're going to run through this quickly, and feel free to give us questions afterwards. Thanks. Alex? Yep.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me okay? Should we wait for the other members or just keep going forward? Okay, thank you. That's a hard act to follow. Those were really inspirational presentations. So thanks for having us back again tonight. I'll try to quickly flip this up so you know what page we're referencing. We won't speak to every single one. As we had mentioned at the last presentation, we're about a month away from our next important submission to the Massachusetts School Building Authority. And we talked about the acronyms and the PSR, which is the Preferred Schematic Plan. The school building committee here in the city has already approved or has accepted that the preferred plan that we have arrived at today is the stone mill, and we want to kind of give you a little bit more context. You asked us some questions last time, and some of the answers or further information are here for you tonight. So we're just going to go through the community outreach really quickly. The first page is really background. We talked about that. We had a really good active engagement in the visioning process, and both parents and students and a lot of good engagement really out of the box. And if you flip to the third page of that, the fourth page, there's also an active website. Any public data, as Anne Marie spoke to, we're going to continue to push that out and make sure that it's readily available to everybody who wants information on this important project. And then after the holidays and after that first initial submission, we're going to be right back at it this Saturday. Anne-Marie and the team's going to be right out there at the mobile market. We've got some boards and some discussion pieces for people to start to become engaged and understand the challenges ahead for the Lawrence Oliver project. There's also a big meeting next week on the Tuvos Council next Wednesday night, so that's another opportunity to engage. And the number 4 there is the community outreach. We've also spoken about starting to engage with that local neighborhood in the gateway part of the city to make sure that we're hearing local voices and we're understanding any challenges or concerns. And of course, every building committee meeting is public as well. We have also been having meetings. We're not able to get on the agenda for the city council, but we have been engaging with individual members of the city council, so they're right up to speed with the challenges that we're facing with the project, the exciting opportunities for the city with the project, and starting to hear their concerns and also aspirations and goals for the Oliver project as well.
Just quick, we we were on the agenda, but because of the tax classification, weren't able to meet, so we're going to get back on their agenda, so just clarification.
Thank you. I'm trying not to be political. So the next page is the transportation, traffic, and parking. You asked about would there be impacts if the school was still north of the canal and obviously still in the northern districts. We had done some analysis of travel distances. It's a very short distance from the existing Oliver site. Obviously, every year the data points of where a student actually lives in the school changes. But if the site today were at the Stone Mill or the Gateway site, it would only impact 5 students in the current transportation plan. So it's very much a part of the sector of the city that certainly vitally needs this project. You had also asked us a question about traffic. So the initial traffic studies in this part of the initial study is really an analysis of existing service levels for the intersections. And our initial analysis also obviously suggests that the traffic to the school, if it were at the Stone Mill or at the Gateway site, would be from the north. It would be coming from from General Street and from Allen Street. The service levels on those intersections is C, A, that nothing is below a D or an F, and so further traffic studies happen at each subsequent stage of the project when we get closer to permitting, and so we would not anticipate any of those dropping below a D or an F and would be easily accommodating a K through 8 model. There's not a lot of traffic necessarily generated by that type, say, compared to a high school. You also asked us a question about the parking commitments that the city has in that area. You can see there's 885 total parking spaces in that city-owned parcel. Some of those commitments are transitional. The 250 spaces for the Lupoli companies is that their parking lot is under construction. When we have some spaces in that bottom that are still not under commitment. Building of this size for 1,000 students, typically 75 to 150 would be a range that we would talk about. You're talking about a school currently that has 0 parking spaces at the Oliver site. So these are always negotiated and discussed for dense urban sites such as yours. So that's, anything in this district is a big help and a big leg up, and doesn't feel like it would necessarily be overly impactful, but we are aware that the commercial district in the city clearly has concerns, and they want to make sure that the gateway parking is still serving its primary need for the commercial needs of the city. You've also asked us about what other sites were considered or looked at. We had access to the MEMAPs and the city-owned parcels. I know the scale of this is a little small. Every site is not equal, but in essence, we've got considerable experience, over 50 projects in the last 25 years alone, that really leads us to tell you that there really aren't many suitable sites in your community in this district. The two red sites, the Oliver site itself, is already small at just a little over an acre if we consolidate some of those parcels. So that has led us to tell you that we cannot accommodate the full 1,000 students in that site, in that building. Down at the Stone Mill site, that again is the preferred site from the building committee. That affords us more acreage, and you can see that it actually is a little bit more substantially larger than anything else in that part of the district. The blue represents the 100-year floodplain. So the only thing I want to caution is you would see the blue coming into the Stone Mill site. Because these are FEMA maps, they're not 100% accurate. And so we have more localized data because we've got survey information specific to that site. And so that we know that that's a change condition from this, and that we can make a school work at the Stone Mill and be outside of that 100-year floodplain. So that was an important part of that initial study that I had mentioned to you last time. You also asked about a couple of other parcels specifically. One was the O'Neill Park, and just put a little bit of language in there. I'm not going to read it, but we can come back to this if you want to. This would require an Article 97 land swap, which really requires at least an equal acreage being transferred. And obviously, there's also a qualitative aspect to that. It's not just purely quantitative. So there is no parcel of land that you're going to give back for that 6.63 acres that you would be taking for the school in order to make that accommodated. And then also you can see that there are dimensional or geometric concerns with that, because you have playing fields and you have perfectly flat sites, and that's all contiguous. So that gets into some of the qualitative aspects of an Article 97. Article 97 was, I want to say, disallowed during the Romney administration. It's come back a little bit. The only instances that we've seen, and we actually have participated in one, are very specific, smaller instances where it was quite clear that it was not going to be a controversy or an impact within the community. They're advocates for schools, they're advocates for open space, they're both important and critical in your community. So we want to be a good neighbor in all instances. The other question that came up, if we were back at the Oliver site, could we continue to even grow the site a little bit more? There are 4 different parcels, so if you go back and you look at the yellow map, if you go into the MEMAPs there are 4 different ownership at least, but it's the same color. So you've got the City of Lawrence, you've got Lawrence Public Schools, you've got Lawrence Redevelopment, and then potentially other private ownership entities. So on this particular diagram, you can see that we've shown you what the acreage is, or the square footage is, for the historic Oliver structure. We've combined that with the City of Lawrence lot, which is basically serving a little bit of parking, a very small space. We've got the Lawrence redevelopment lot to the east, again, just far less than an acre, a few thousand square feet. Just for reference, a gymnasium, a single gymnasium that you're looking for, is 8,000 square feet. So that's kind of the scale that you might put in your mind with some of those numbers. And then there's another Lawrence redevelopment lot next to that. And again, all these things would have to be very carefully considered by City Council, by the mayor, and by other entities. You did ask specifically about the Frost House. So we did sort of indicate it here. It's in blue. That is a historic parcel as well. So we suspect that just like here, we're indicating that we would probably protect the southern component of the historic Oliver structure. We're indicating that you would have to work around that too. So again, that geometrically starts to limit that. What we're in essence trying to tell you with this is we still do not think that this is going to accommodate 1,000 students. We think we're down in that 750 student range, which would not meet the goals of the project as currently anticipated. That red volume is up at that 5-story limit that we've talked to you about last time as well. And then lastly is the schedule, and I'm sure Anne Marie and others will want to talk about this. You can see where we are here today, January 8th. We were before you just a month ago. We really appreciate that you did fit us in before the holidays. We know how busy this time of year is for everybody. We plan on issuing you our next submission and report, which really much more high stakes with the School Building Authority, where we're really telling them that the commitment of the community is to really head in this direction on this specific site. And that will be 1 week before when we intend to be back before you on February 12th. And we would hopefully be seeking a vote from your committee in support of the work that the district, City Council, the mayor, and the community has been doing and supporting the preferred schematic project. That's our quick presentation tonight. Thank you.
Thanks.
Before we go to questions, before we go to questions, Mr. Chairman, I would just like to say that periodically, quarterly, I give you a report on the MSBA projects. I added it to this agenda item because this is about the time that I would give this. So this is an update from the last time that I gave you, and this gives you all the MSBA projects.
Can I just stop you? Because I don't want to confuse the Oliver thing with the rest of the thing. Can we just do the Oliver thing first?
Yep, I just wanted to speak to this just to know what was in your packet.
Okay.
Happy to do that.
All right, because there's a lot of the stuff that you guys are doing with roofs and windows and all that stuff, and I don't want to go.
Yep. I wasn't going to speak to it. I just wanted to let you know what the document was that I handed out.
Oh, I apologize.
No worries. I apologize.
Questions?
Sure.
Yeah.
So a couple things, because I've been kind of intimately involved with this project, and just going through the presentation. I'm glad that you mentioned that we were on the City Council agenda and we didn't get a chance to talk about it because the other items went far too long, but that you guys have met almost with all of the counselors so far, and using the 3 counselor formats, so there wasn't any conflict of the open meeting law. The outreach was multilingual, so the people who were in there it wasn't just you guys talking, but people could talk. If they needed Spanish and English translation, that was there. The slide that, just to kind of give some other color to it. So 2 things. One is the issues around environmental justice and whether or not, dirty sites for students and schools and all that stuff. The fact that the agreements with EPA and DEP are not ones that deal directly with the issues aren't directly underneath the stone mill, because the stone mill's been there since the turn of the century. It's really around in the parking lot area, and so a project that builds the stone mill into a school really only talks about will only really have kids on parts of the site that don't have any real big issues. There is a big conversation with them because they want to know what we're going to do with the rest of the lot, and making sure that the big parking lot part where there is a membrane and all this other stuff happens is never disturbed, and all these things happen around that. And developing on some of those spaces would be very expensive, but the idea that a gym attached to the stone mill would be probably in the cleanest part of this site as an overall issue. And I know no one had that as a concern before, but I wanted to make sure folks know this is not going to be, contrary to, environmental justice issues in communities like ours. And then the last thing is the site of at the Oliver, the house the Frost House, is currently owned as in part of a partnership with a current city councilor. And even if we wanted to do that, I think it would be very difficult for us to get hold of that property without a conflict of interest. I personally have said that I would never sign a document that takes that property, because I don't want, it would look like a big wet kiss to a city councilor who no one knew that she was buying it even before we started talking about this. And to the point where the lot that the Redevelopment Authority owns in the back, they sold it to her without any idea that we were even thinking about doing anything to the Oliver. And some people think, well, that was kind of a conspiracy thing. I wish we were that organized, that the Redevelopment Authority knew exactly what we were trying to do, but we didn't have all our eggs in one basket at that point. But that makes the site even more difficult, because you can't take the Frost House not without, somebody losing the interest in it, or for us violating conflict of interest. But in the end, the last thing I want to say is, we started talking about this with Superintendent Riley was here, and the difficulty of trying to figure out how we fix and update facilities, and how we grow for the space for more students that are coming anyway. I know some people think that if you don't build the stuff, maybe they won't come. I think if you ask teachers today, the classrooms are getting packed regardless of whether or not we have space for them. And we saw the acrobats that you guys have to go through to move kids from kids that would normally go to the to the Arlington. They end up going to the Tar Box, and then end up going to the Leonard, and then kids who would let you go to Leonard then have to go to the Tar Box. So they are doing what they can with that space, and then you try to figure out where we're going to put students as they work on the new buildings. So if we wanted to do the Oliver site and do as it's laid out the way it is now, you have to find swing space for those kids, so you're spending that money on that. And if you spend enough time looking at this chessboard that is these pieces, you come down quickly that slide, whatever, shows you all these lots. There's really few places we can go to do this and meet the educational needs. We kind of had that feeling before we talked to the teachers, but when the teachers talked about what the education environment was needed, it really put a finer point on the need to have a larger space to accommodate for 1,000 students, to meet the education for those 1,000 students. So even if we do the Oliver the site, we will get to 700, how many?
736 according to the MSBA.
So we can get to 736, but we won't be meeting 100% of their education needs.
We're losing over 250 seats. That's quite a number to lose that we won't
But
be
even
able
if
to
the
make
kids,
up.
even the kids that go there at the 700 and whatever number,
Yep.
they will only be getting an 80% of what we expect for them to get.
We would have to drop the kindergarten.
So I put all that in context because, no one loves having to spend money on this stuff. But the more I think about it, the more the city should actually be more active in land banking properties, because we desperately are going to need space for students. And if we had thought about this 10 years ago, we could have probably got that building for a song. But we just didn't. And it's the same thing. We bought the parking lot next to the fire department. We paid, I want to say we paid $600-something thousand for that, $580,000 for that property. And if we could probably picked it up for less when it first came on the market. So this stuff is only going to escalate the further we push it on. And these are all very tough decisions. But I think in the end, when we get down to brass tacks, the 1,000 student seat in an environment where they get 100% of the education component is going to make the most sense, however hard and however expensive this is going to be. I don't talk about this a lot in the building committee, but I think that a school system that's under receivership, when they say you're going to get 80% reimbursement, which really turns out to be like 65% reimbursement because they haven't updated how much it costs to build a school, that they should honor the 80% and just make it clear that you're in receivership. They should honor the 80%, regardless of what the standard is in MSBA with the construction costs, because we are unlike a lot of communities, and so we should get that benefit. I know I'll be fighting for that 80% to be held harmless, regardless of what the things. And there is stuff that we can't charge them for. If you can imagine the box that brings electricity into the school, we have to pay for the box on the street. Makes no sense to me. So you can build this beautiful school, but to plug it into the grid, you have to pay for that. And there's only so much you pay for classroom equipment and all those things. So we are going to live by those rules best we can. We have a great consultant in Pink, and we have a great consultant with the architects to try to get us as much money as we can. But at the end, it's still going to be closer to 65% of the total cost. We have to go and make noise about the fact that we are a receivership school and be held harmless on 80% of it. But that's going to be a group kind of decision. I know I said a lot, but I wasn't here the last meeting. And I just wanted to put people's idea about what was going on and what's in our heads when we're thinking about, building a new school. And then we start off, how do we make the Oliver School, a partnership school, better? And the reality is the best use of every dollar that we're going to spend is going to be to do the 1,000-seat school at the mill.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I just want to note that you very humbly said that you were intimately involved in this project. You are the chair of this project, and well attend our meetings and make sure that our project stays on track. So I just want to make sure that the public is aware that you're intimately involved because you are the chair and you take a great interest in this. And I do think that it is our responsibility as a school district to ensure that we enact the educational plan. The finances, that's the job of the city council and your job as mayor, but it is our responsibility to enact the educational plan, and that 1,000 seats and being able to get our enrollment increased by the MSBA by 500 is an opportunity that we cannot afford to allow to slip by, because in 5 years from now, somebody's going to say, why did they build a school for 750 when they knew they needed 1,000? And I just want to mention that.
Julia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know the mayor touched on the environmental issues a little bit, and I know this was one issue that I brought up at the last meeting. For purposes of this committee, I'd like to get something in writing from the Environmental Protection Agency regarding the use of those, or the effects of that use in that lot for the benefit of our kids, or how much of that can be used, what could be the effects, if any, to the children or the people that are going to be occupying that. That is my biggest concern with that particular building. So I'd like to see something. I know you're planning to be back before this board for next month. I'd like to see something in writing directly from them.
Can I just say that that is an excellent point, and that is one of the things that we have to work with. And we met right before this meeting. We had a meeting, and we are in the process of having the Director of Economic Development putting us in touch with the EAP and the DEP so that we can schedule a meeting so that we can provide you with more in-depth information regarding that.
Thank you.
Yep.
We should get that before.
Yep. It is a process, but we're going to get you everything we can right now before that next meeting, but it's begun.
A quick question. Thanks again for answering the additional questions. Can you talk through this slide again, with the floodplain? I guess I'm trying to make sure I understand why, based on this slide, you're, because when I'm seeing the blue, just explain to me again, why you're confident that the site would not be impacted by potential floodplain.
I don't think this one is on. Is that on?
No, here you go.
All right. Yeah, so this is literally from the website map, and so this is a FEMA overlay, and it's not truly accurate to the contours, and that's typical for all FEMA maps. So when you come into the property and for the permitting and the very highly specific work that we'll be doing on the site, We've got a survey that was already taken on that site. We then have contours. So we know the FEMA sets an elevation for that 100-year floodplain. Now we know what the actual contours are around that, and then we can set where that blue line, so to speak,
Got
is.
it.
So it's not actually as it
This is
shows
not-
in this map.
Okay.
Right.
Do we have a better map?
Yeah.
We can give you the close-up of the site plan to show you where
That would be helpful.
that is. Yeah.
Have we gotten an elevation certificate on this yet, or no?
A what certificate, I'm sorry?
Elevation certificate
Oh, no.
from the surveyor.
Like the survey itself, just what the plot plan looks like?
Because of the changes that were made to FEMA in Ventura, because of the insurance,
Yep.
I can say, talk about it a little bit, is that if you get an elevation certificate from a surveyor that dictates how elevated the area is, sometimes that will change, make significant changes to the plans, the old plans that FEMA had. So maybe that's also something that could be done prior to the next meeting, and so that we can be provided with that as well.
Yeah,
With
and
that
what we-
elevation, that the elevation certificate is going to dictate, the issues with the flooding, which from all the time we've been, I've never seen that area flooded in the city, but
Well, and there's been a
it
lot
is
of work
there.
done to do flood mitigation with a lot of storm surge protection and everything, so that's a great thing to know that that's there as well.
Actually, my question related to that is, if this is in the 100-year floodplain, will that affect the type of flood insurance that will?
You're not, by code and state law, allowed to build within the floodplain, so we will not be, the structure will not be in the floodplain
Okay.
at the end of the project, so to speak.
Any other questions? Pat?
Yeah, just a quick, on the transportation and traffic and parking, looking at this breakdown, is it safe to assume that the children will not have to be bused to the new site?
As it stands right now, there will be 5 students.
Just 5, yeah.
That's taking today's population. I do want to be very clear that when this school comes online, and we also are going to have projects that are, housing projects that are coming online that are right there. So those numbers will probably shrink in terms of how close they are to the proximity of the school, because they will be on that side of the Gateway property.
Okay.
And there may be some changes in our transportation and our enrollment structures based on the school, on those projects coming online, as you're familiar with.
Okay. Thank you.
Any others? Thank you very much.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So we have one item that to potentially be added to the agenda. It's a request relative to a trip by the JROTC at Lawrence High School. So at this time, Chair would entertain a vote to add the Lawrence High School Junior ROTC out-of-state travel request to the agenda.
Yep, so moved.
Do I have a second?
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes at this time. The request has been added to the agenda. Superintendent, I don't know if you want to speak on this, or?
I think I have the We've had an invitation, which is fully funded, to have our students go to London, basically. They're going to London. And so it does require out of international travel, and that is under your jurisdiction. Jurisdiction, thank you. Third try.
We in charge of it.
There you go. You're the bosses of it.
So at this time, the Chair would entertain a motion to approve the out-of-state travel of the Lawrence High School JROTC as submitted in this request.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion passes. Last item tonight is just an earned autonomy update. I'm going to piggyback off of what Jess said. Consultant for the turnaround plan has been engaged. That's the Great Schools Partnership. We're in the closing stages of engaging a consultant for earned autonomy. We have, the superintendent and I have decided to take the Earned Autonomy Steering Committee, which we referenced in the last meeting, and to make that a joint steering committee for turnaround and earned autonomy. And we will convene that first meeting within a month. That has every major stakeholder group represented, and I think what we should do for the next meeting is we will brief the board on a full timeline, goals and objectives, and potentially invite the consultants to come and answer questions. And then, and within that, prior to that taking place, I will report out back to the Earned Autonomy Subcommittee of this board on any pertinent updates, and Jess will report to the turnaround subcommittee on any pertinent pieces. But we will take a decent chunk of the next meeting to really lay this all out for everybody with the timeline. And in February, I could say we will begin community outreach, which Jess has been focused on, and stakeholder engagement. But for our February meeting, we'll lay out the whole process and take everybody's questions and details. I don't know if there's general process questions right now. I'm happy to take them. Okay. We're going to take up the minutes at the next meeting. So before we adjourn, I'll just throw it open to anyone for final comments, questions. Mayor?
Yeah, just two things. One is that I wasn't here when you guys talked about the new funding at the State House of Student Success Opportunity Act money. I think it's important to not ever forget how much money is coming to this district from the state, and that our state senator, Barry Feingold, our state representatives, and Frank Moran, and Marcos Devers, and Christina Minicucci have bought what's going to probably be an extra $15 million a year for 7 years. And that money is money much needed for ELL learners. This is a movement that started 5 years ago, trying to figure out really how better to fund education in the Commonwealth. And a lot of advocates, including teachers unions, that have went out there and make sure that this was on the agenda for the State House, but they finally funded it for 7 years. And that's, $1.5 billion. It's a real, the transportation advocates are drooling over the fact that the education advocates got this through the legislature. And I want to make sure that everybody, if you get a chance and you see Barry, Frank, Marcos, or Christina, you have to tell them thank you for this, because it's not something ordinary. This is very important. So the second piece is, there was an email going around about ICE data and whether or not the district gives information to ICE about our students. And there is it looked like a 2 or 3 page policy on the matter. But the long and short of it, in conversation with the superintendent, that we do not do what's being said out there about districts giving data to ICE and having them have access to our data. When you get a subpoena, you have to respond to a subpoena. But short of that, the district takes care of our students and their data in ways that we wish them to do that. So I know there was an email going around. I just want to make sure people know that, and I want to thank the superintendent for standing behind that. Thanks.
Thanks. Anybody else? Great. At this time, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. At this time, we are adjourned.